Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. Tuesday, June 9th. I made most of this video Sunday and Monday, and I have a health update, or in terms of I now know how this was caused for sure, which I will talk about at the end of this video. And I got one more thing to add this morning about a thing with Tucker Carlson, and then I'm going to put this video up for tomorrow morning, Wednesday at 8 a.m. And then whatever stuff happens today will go in the Thursday video. So in the NBA Finals last night, let's start here with Trump. Okay, so Trump goes to the game, which is a total dick move on his part because nobody wants him there. The two teams, the players, like everybody who's involved in the New York area, don't like this motherfucker. And he's giving this fake salute here. The guy sang a great national anthem. I usually don't like this kind of singing, this kind of boy band run singing, and national anthem's a horrible song. But nobody's digging it. The people in New York City are, they were thinking that Knicks were going to come in and take Game 3 and then sweep the Spurs because, they played so well in the first two games. And they have years and years of history. It's a big basketball town. And San Antonio's going to roll them. But no one's paying attention to the national anthem. And then the crowd sees Trump up here. Now, this is a New York Post. They've tamped it down. I should copy it off the TV. The booing was even, in fact, I'll go do that now. The booing was even louder. Let me go get it off. I still have it. I didn't erase the thing. Well, here they have it. Okay, so that's that. I'm not going to get it off the TV because that's a better rendition. They really booed the shit out of him. Like, it was 80% of the crowd in the middle of the national anthem is booing Trump. So, I guess Stephen A. Smith and him went at it here. Let me show you that.
If they lose tonight, I'm looking right at him. I'm saying it. This is just me. I'm blaming him. I'm blaming the president of the United States of America if the New York Knicks lose this tonight.
So apparently he's going to talk about this on First Take, and I'm not going to cover it. But so who's this fucking guy? There's his dead inside granddaughter. So let's talk about how selfish this is on Trump's part, right? So nobody wants him there. He's not a real New York Knicks fan, right? These people who, there's a lot of celebrities that go to these games, and they get front row seats to some of them, the bigger ones, and people who in New York, and they love the Knicks. The Knicks haven't won in years, and the Knicks hadn't lost a game in 47 days. Of course, Trump's the 47th president, so that's already fucked, in that way. But there was heightened security. Deron Fox for the San Antonio Spurs said it just makes it worse for everybody. The people had to come through heightened security because Trump's there with the bullshit fake assassination attempts, which I'm going to get to in my next video. That piece of shit Tucker Carlson's talking about it. I haven't heard what he says yet, but, they're still pretending it's real. That Trump is dropping the investigations because, to his own assassinations, which is bullshit. So nobody wants him there. He's not a real New York fan, and he's inconveniencing everybody. That's what a prick he is. And I mean, Stephen A. Smith is one of the New York Knicks big fans. He's going to blame Trump. There's this energy in the building that Trump brought in. Right? The New York Knicks were on the cusp of winning the finals, and the Spurs just came in and fucking handed it to them. I was impressed by this young team that came in, which just made it that much sweeter. I don't know, I kind of were rooting for. I'm not a fan of either team, but the San Antonio Spurs, the way they play, it's great. The New York Knicks have had a great run, and they seem to be ready to win the finals. And then Trump shows up, and things go south like fucking bad luck charm. And but it's just selfish on his part. Nobody wants him here. Nobody likes him in New York. He's not a real fan. This is a big game. The seats, like the cheapest seats, even like in the bleachers, like in the nosebleeds, are going for like $8,000. There's seats that are going for I think over 100. Like it's overpriced, and just for all these people pay that much money, and some of them have season ticket holders, so there's that. But crazy amounts of money, and just to see their team get fucking beat and Trump get and they're interrupting the national anthem to boo this motherfucker, and they booed him before, they booed him a couple times, and so he doesn't give a shit about basketball. He doesn't know the players don't like him. They're not going to go to the White House if they win. Like he's not a real fan, and they don't like him. And this is just it's just like him just being an absolute prick, taking up one of these coveted boxes, and there's so many New York Knicks fans standing outside who can't afford the tickets, and it's a basketball town. It's a big thing, and it's like him just doing this just because he can, just bring this family in, and none of them, the mild New York fans at best. Not the kind of people that should be at the game and taking up fucking space and then bringing in that negative energy. So then Trump clapped back at him here.
ESPN commentator Stephen A. Smith, who was talking about running for president, said he would blame you if the Knicks lost the game. How do you respond to that?
I think he's a nice guy, but you need a certain aptitude to run for president. You need a high IQ. I'm not sure that Stephen has that.
Why? Why is that, Trump? Is it anything to do with his, I don't know, complexion? Why is that?
I don't think he does, actually.
Well, you're sitting with Mr. Dolan tonight. Did you and him talk about it at all? Or?
We did. We talked about it. He's a friend of mine for a long time, and he's a great guy. He's done a fantastic job.
Secretary Duffy was also at the game tonight.
Commissioner Silver
He came over to pay his respects. As president, he came over, and we talked a little bit about the
Is that Adam Silver?
NBA and about the
fucking Adam Silver's there, the fucking commissioner of the NBA.
game, and the game's changed. I said it's gotten rougher, which is a good thing, not a bad thing. It's gotten rougher.
He likes that rough stuff. There was some UFC thing popped up on maybe it was on my phone. And, it's very gay, like the way that they're holding each other. Boxing and even more so the UFC, when they get on the ground and one guy is, on his back in a missionary position with his legs wrapped around the other guy, holding him tight so he can't punch him. It's a fight, but also it's kind of very intimate. There was a long time ago, some guy claiming to be from the UFC wanted to fight me. He left a comment, and I made the mistake of banning him before. I was like, oh, I should have read this comment. But he was like, he wanted to, I'm like, it's pretty gay, bro. I don't want to wrestle around with you. It doesn't appeal to me at all. Just because you're upset by something I said, you want to wrestle around with me? It's a fucking, in your shorts. But the whole thing is like this UFC thing. It's like, Trump's into this sort of male erotic, muscular guys and their fucking legs that he wants to rub and shit. And so, rub and tug. All right. So, yeah, let me go and add this one thing at the end of the video. And then I got a couple things to add there. I got some comments to add, and I got some more things to add about my health I already done the health thing, but I want to add to it. Anyway, so, this bad luck, there's a show, I think it was called Pebbles and Bam Bam. It was the kids of the Flintstones all grown up. And I used to watch this show as a kid. And one of the reasons was there's this character named Bad Luck Shleplock. And he was Schleprock. And whenever he would come into an area, like 4-leaf clovers would wilt, like things would, break. And he would just, he was like Pigpen was for dirt with bad luck. Wherever he went, he just sucked the energy out of it. And Trump is that kind of guy at this point. And just, the selfishness of him going to this game. And of course he's going to be blamed because sports fans are very superstitious. New York fans, probably particularly. Any team that thinks they're cursed, right? And the fact that the team hadn't lost in 47 days, and 47 shows up like a fucking Darth Vader of goodwill. And all right, so let me get to the other stuff that I've already done here, and I'm going to add that one thing. And I think Stephen A. Smith is going to spend his whole time on First Take, which now I have to fucking watch because I don't like the guy. But it's kind of funny because to watch him be bummed out because he was so psyched about the energy there in New York City coming back. The San Antonio Spurs have the better record, so they have 2 games at home, and they lost both games, close games. And they're a youthful team, and they made some mistakes, and they seem to be tired out from, they had a tougher road to the finals. They had to play 3 tough teams, so that they matched up poorly with Portland, and the Minnesota Timberwolves are a tough team, and the Oklahoma City Thunder was probably the best team, but they match up poorly with San Antonio, and San Antonio was like eyeing them down. They beat them regularly in the regular season, and so the Knicks breezed through the East, and a lot of teams the Celtics sort of faced. So they were fresher and better, and in better shape, and the first 2 games or whatever, and of course it's rigged. So there's that fact, and they seemed like the refs wanted. They want to extend whenever they can. They want to extend the series. They have a couple of refs they bring in who are specifically good at making sure the team that's behind in games wins a game. And they had one in San Antonio, and they couldn't. San Antonio just couldn't execute. So, but now, if the San Antonio wins again in New York, and then they have 2 of the 3 games are going to be at home, then they become the favorites again, and Trump will be blamed for all of this shit, right? Which will be funny. So I enjoy that. A team that hasn't won in a long time and feels like they're cursed, the whole town, feels like there's some kind of, and the Knicks have this opportunity with a lot of injuries in the East, and, a young team that they're playing that they seem to match up well with in the regular season. And so, the Knicks fans are feeling like this is their one opportunity. Like next year is going to be way harder. And, if they fall short, especially being up, 0-2 or 2-0. And then so Trump. All right. So that's pretty funny. Okay, greetings, brothers and sisters. So I discovered something a couple days ago these videos that I put up and they're not ready to be, I try to space them out. And so I have a video that I already uploaded today that I can put on them for the members early, and then it'll be uploaded. It'll be live on tomorrow, Monday night, because I already had a video that went up today at 2. And I found out about this, and, I almost want to put it in the next video because there'll be 6 more crazy shit things that Trump did. And Iran is just bombed Israel again, and they're saying fuck you to Trump's deal, which I have to cover again. So, there's always something. But the other video's so jam-packed with stuff. This video won't be up till Tuesday. But anyways, here it is.
Crooked press. People like stupid Biden. He's not smart enough to know what's going on. But people that surrounded him.
All right, so his face looks really bad. Look at his fucking lines and his fucking, all this fake tan bullshit he's been doing for years. And there's a guy, when we picked tobacco, so I lived in a fairly, rich suburb. My dad was a guidance counselor, but a lot of the, people I went to school with were fairly well off, insurance executive parents or whatever. It was Simsbury, Connecticut, which is, a suburb outside of the suburb. I grew up in a suburb outside of Hartford, and this was like 45 minutes away from Hartford out in the country. But there were tobacco fields, and many of us picked tobacco for $2.47 an hour back in, 1981, 2. And the guy who ran the tobacco farm was some guy named Greer, who we all referred to as Tomato Face, because he had this big fat face that was beet red, work, you go home. He was like foreign, Russian or Polish or some shit. And this guy's face is worse. I mean, he's more tomato face than tomato face.
This beautiful, resolute desk in the Oval Office. What they did to the lives of people, they destroyed people. They sent people to jail who did nothing
All
wrong.
right, just to be very clear, there's no evidence of what you're saying. But
There's
let me
a
ask
lot
you
of
about
evidence.
Todd Blanche. Let me ask you about
Listen
Todd
to me.
Blanche.
Listen to me.
Let's talk
There's
about Todd
tremendous
Blanche.
evidence. There's nothing
What's
but
not been
evidence. The
presented
election
in a
was
court of
rigged.
law.
Okay, so there's nothing but evidence. Then why not arrest all of those people? You can, if you have the evidence and you have a district attorney, and you have a whatever they call it, attorney general. Pam Bondi, now his personal lawyer, whatever that fuck guy's name is. Don't tell me, don't care, I don't need to know. You could just arrest those people. You could present the evidence and arrest every one of the Biden people that wrongly convicted January 6 people or any other Trumpers or any of the people that went after you. Like, just arrest them. Show a criminal case, provide the evidence, and go out and prosecute these people, all of them. Instead of, just giving money away to random people, you have to show that they were actually wronged by the government, right? And, the Democrats are going to be in power again in 2 years and then again in 4 years. They'll have probably the House and the Senate and the White House, and Trump will be dead and gone, or he'll be over. And I don't even know what's going to be a vacuum of, whatever. Like, he's flaming out now. He'll probably flame out as soon as the Democrats take over even more. Like, he's lost his shit. Like, he's crazy. And she said there's no evidence for that because she's a piece of shit NBC reporter. But, so he's going to go, and now he's going to have a little tantrum.
It was a dirty election.
Mr.
And it's
President,
happening again right now in California.
You've never presented evidence
It's happening
that the
right
2020
now in
election
California.
was rigged.
Right now, look at what's
Where's
happening
the
in
evidence
California.
to that?
It's
The
4
Republicans
days.
are doing well in
California. No, they're not. They're dropping fast because it's a rigged election. Let me tell you, it's 4 days.
So they rigged the California election while you're president? So you're admitting you're absolutely limp-dicked and powerless. Like, you can't prevent election. You couldn't prevent it when you were president in 2020, and you can't prevent it for a national election, and you can't prevent it here. You're saying, like, you're not above cheating. Like, you wouldn't rig an election, but only the Democrats would. I mean, but, he just fucking lies, right? Not that the elections are all rigged. It's a fucking rigged game. Everything's rigged. I mean, America's less rigged than other countries. I've talked about this. The third master for the Sajmark system used to talk about how, this is a wonderful system here in America because it rewards for merit. And growing up in a country in India where they have caste, where you're born into limitations, right? Everybody within your caste, even the higher up castes, are limited because they're competitive. They can only, like, the Brahmins can only get jobs like doctors and engineers. But if you're not smart enough and you don't test well, you ain't gonna fucking get those jobs. And so what are you gonna do, right? Like, they have limited jobs of, like, upper level jobs. But anyways, all these countries, there's so much more nepotism, and, like, as bad as it is here, it's worse there, right? In many of these countries. But this guy's just flaming out.
And they aren't even close to coming up with
That's how they count
You know
the
why
votes
they're
in
doing that?
California.
Because they're cheating on the election.
Do you have evidence to support
all I have
that?
to do is look. All I have to do is look.
That's not.
Then why not look and fucking present it? Like, you can't just say it's happening because you think it's happening. I mean, she's asking you for showing some evidence, right? Like, again, she sucks, but I mean, he's got nothing.
And I listen to people, and let's see what happens.
But, sir, that's not evidence.
Do you think it's appropriate?
That's how they count the votes in
Do you
California.
think it's appropriate that they have an election and 5 days later they're nowhere close to picking a
State
winner?
and local officials acknowledge they are slow. They're urging.
No, they're crooked.
They're urging the
crooked.
votes to be counted quickly. That's how they vote
They're
in
crooked,
California.
just like you're crooked. Your press is crooked, and Meet the Press is crooked.
To be fair,
Again, how is she crooked? Like, she could be a shill, which she is. She could be disinformation, but isn't crooked. She's not, stealing money from the American government like you are. She's not defrauding people, right? She's lying to them, but it's not crooked. This isn't crooked. This sucks. We all know how bad, regular news is and how shitty Meet the Press is, but it's not crooked. Like that's not the.
Fair, I'm not crooked, but let's
Really?
let's
Well, you
continue.
play right into their hands. then.
Let's continue.
You're either crooked or you're stupid.
Let's
Which is it?
Play right into their hands with this rap. You know that these elections are rigged. Your network knows that they're rigged. You know that I won an election in a landslide, and I got 94% bad press.
But Mr. President,
you know why I
you've
got
never
that?
presented
Because you have no
evidence.
credibility.
But you've never presented evidence that it was rigged. Let's keep talking about. I want to talk about Todd
You
Blanche.
have more evidence.
Todd Blanche is the dude's name.
There's more evidence than ever presented.
Let's talk
You're
about.
They'd arrest some motherfuckers. See, that's the thing. You're the president. You're running. He's running the attorney general's office. Is that the right word? I don't know. Whatever Pam Bondi was. He's running his own Justice Department, which he's supposed to be neutral. They're not supposed to be, I mean, of course they never are, but they're never this corrupt, where they're just doing his bidding, delaying the Epstein files. And then, the FBI, all these different agencies. You're going after the woman who accused you of rape that you said was too ugly for you to rape. And apparently, I need to find that. I saw a little clip. He was being interviewed when he was, for the defamation case. And he said, "You're not my type either," to the woman interviewing him, right? Remember, he doubled down on the ground by the pussy thing on that deposition. And so, he's a fucking mess, this guy. I mean, he's been for years, but now he's just falling apart.
Elections
You
in
went
this
to
country,
court.
we're like a third world country.
But, sir-
Your elections are crooked, and you're crooked.
And then you should be able to then show this and demonstrate it in a way.
Meet the Press is crooked,
Mr.
and so
President-
is ABC and CBS and CNN.
But, Mr. President-
You're one-sided crooked networks. All right, let's call it quits because I've had enough. Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President,
Thank you, darling. You just called her crooked and how bad she was. You just ranted and you're like, "Thank you, darling."
let's please. I traveled all the way to Wisconsin.
I've sat.
You traveled all the way to Wisconsin? Did you? Oh, thanks. So, then I will continue my interview. Wait, you got in a plane and you went to Wisconsin? And then listen to what this fucking puss is going to say.
Traveled
rain with
all.
you.
I know.
She goes, "I sat in the rain with you." You're not, is there rain hitting you because you're in a barn?
I've sat in the
traveled
rain
all the
with
way
you
to
for an hour,
Wisconsin.
on and off in the rain, and I've given you enough time. You ought to straighten out your press because you know what?
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be
We
great
traveled
with a
all-
dishonest
Listen,
press.
we
Come on.
traveled.
It could never be great with a dishonest press, then it'll never be great. You just admitted America will never be great because the press isn't going to become honest. You think that's an argument for, you mean if we become honest press, America will be great? They're never going to be honest. So America's never going to be great. So you just admitted. Listen to that again. He just admitted.
Your press because you know what?
Mr.
A
President,
country can never be
We
great
traveled
with a dishonest
listen,
press.
we
Come on, let's
traveled
go.
all the way to Wisconsin for this interview.
You traveled all the way to Wisconsin. What kind of bullshit is that? What are you, fucking retarded? That's your argument? Well, we traveled all the way here. Fucking, look at this fat fuck and his big ass and his fucking. He's got a crypt keeper mullet now himself, like Joe Biden did. All right, so that's Exhibit A. I don't know what else he's going to be doing by the time I put this video up on Tuesday. I got all of tomorrow for more shit like this. But let's check in with Iran. Okay, so I don't know if there's been 2 missile strikes here. There's 2 separate videos. Let's see what's up.
Yeah, it's obviously a fast-moving situation, and I know, like yourself, I mean, you'll be working your sources in the region, but an Iranian official linked with the talks between the US and Iran has sent me a message this evening, and remember, it's early in the morning out here in the region, and they've said to me that a deal with President Trump is no longer feasible at this stage. And this official blamed President Trump for the current situation inside Lebanon and the current escalation. I presume the escalation meaning what the Iranian response has been, given it's been Iran's red line not to attack Beirut all along. So this is a pretty interesting development because it means that Iran now feels, and this is someone linked with the negotiations, feels that it cannot now have open dialogue with President Trump and sign off on a deal which both sides have been working pretty tirelessly, it has to be said, over the last month or so, maybe even longer, to get this deal over the line. So right now, the Iranians not in the mood to have discussions with the US to get a deal, to get this MOU, this framework, which would try and bring a conclusive ending to this conflict over the line.
You know, Trump's so unstable. I mean, he might just fucking nuke Iran. Like, I mean, I don't know if anybody would prevent him. I don't know what kind of handlers they have. I don't know if there's anybody in the controlling, the people who can tell Trump what to do or can tell the people around Trump what to do. I think Israel certainly would want that. I mean, you know, like, it's going to, like, I'm pretty sure it's going to, like, what else is going to, how is this going to end? I mean, Trump gets all pissed off and just says, hey, fuck it, let's nuke Iran. He's already threatened it, you know, and he just can have a bad day. You know, Trump's sleep deprived, as Marco Rubio says he never sleeps, and he's all fucking crazy. He's losing his shit, and, you know, Iran won't, you know, just fucking do it. We'll see what happens, but if anybody's going to do something like that, it's Trump. So this video, it's past 9 here. It's past 10. This video is about, or here.
We begin tonight with some major breaking news coming out of the Middle East, where Israeli officials say that Iran has launched missiles at the country today for the first time since April's ceasefire. Again, scrambling efforts by Donald Trump and regional mediators who were working on trying to strike a deal between the U.S. and Iran. Tonight, air raid sirens were reported across parts of northern Israel, raising fresh concerns that the region could be sliding back towards a broader conflict. Israeli officials say all missiles were intercepted. Just in the last half hour, our White House reporter Jake Traylor reports that a White House official says Trump has, quote, fundamentally miscalculated on Iran and underestimated the willingness of Iran to resume the conflict. MS Now has also confirmed a call did in fact take place between President Trump and Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin.
Well, you know, did we get to see if he's really alive?
Netanyahu. This, according to a White House official, granted anonymity to share some sensitive details. The call was initiated by President Trump. Of course, all the escalation comes hours after Israel carried out airstrikes hitting civilian areas in the suburbs of Beirut.
All right, so, you know, whatever. I mean, we'll see what happens. This war's not ending. You know, this is going to escalate into some sort of nuclear conflict at some point. And I think it's probably going to be Trump losing his shit that starts it at this point. That would be, if there's an office pool, I would take that option. Okay, Monday morning, June 8th, this video is going up tomorrow. Is it tomorrow? Yeah. No, a video is going up tonight. Maybe this isn't going up till Wednesday. All right. So we got lots of time. This is going to... Things are really unraveling for Trump. I started covering this yesterday, and I really want to emphasize that moment where he said, you know, as long as the media is corrupt, America will never be great again. So we're either going to get rid of the media, which, you know, I mean, it's already owned and compromised, but not in a way that Trump likes. But it's how cheaply and easily he gave up on the idea of make America great again. Like, he didn't campaign and say, I'm going to make America great again if the media cooperates. If the media doesn't suck. Right? Like, you know, if the media isn't biased against me. If the media tells everyone how great I am all the time, America will be great again. You know, so, and then this video was recommended this morning. More of this thing here.
Kristen Welker also repeatedly pushed back on the president's lies about the January 6th insurrection and election fraud. Take a listen.
Do you think anyone who attacked police officers on January 6th should get taxpayer money?
I wouldn't be inclined to say so, but I have to see it. I can tell you this, 97% of those people, you look at them, the FBI or whoever it was, because you had a lot of crooked cops, you had dirty cops. Comey was a dirty cop.
Well,
a guy like Bolton was a dirty
but
cop.
There's no evidence.
Wait a minute. Oh, you think Comey was a straight
people
cop?
who pleaded guilty to assaulting police
Comey
officers.
was a dirty cop.
No,
they
but
had
the people
FBI.
who assaulted police
Listen to me.
officers.
They had FBI agents ushering them into the building. They had FBI go into the building. Those people.
So, I at one time would believe that that's the case, that they had the FBI going into the building. But now I would be inclined to disbelieve that because Trump has his little bitch in there, Kash Patel. And he had, all the intelligence stuff. He has is it district attorney? What is the thing, right? His puppet, whatever the Todd Blanchett and those people. They will do whatever Trump's bidding is. And so they went after Comey, and I don't know where that is in the process, saying, they went after Comey legally. But where's the evidence that the FBI ushered them in? Because you have access to all that evidence. Like, you could go into the FBI's files, you could show that. Like, this is a guy just talking shit on the internet with no proof. Like, I can say things that I believe to be true, but I have no capacity to prove them. I can quote articles and I can say, the truth is he has access to what really happened as president. And his Justice Department has access to what happened. His, NSA people, his FBI, his, intelligence agency people. He's in charge of all those people. They're all Trumpers. And so they could go in and find all that evidence and present it to the American people, put it out on Fox News, and start arresting FBI agents that were posing as provocateurs. He's leaving out that he sent those guys up to Capitol Hill. He riled them up. And then he fucking completely bailed on them. Like a total little bitch, he bailed on them and he denounced them twice. Like he Judased them. He fucking, totally Judased them, right? Charlie Kirk was a Judas too. Like people think they're like Christ, they're like Judas. Charlie Kirk Judased America, so is Trump. He's on behalf of Israel. He's aligned himself with the Pharisees, the ones that, were responsible for Jesus' death, right? So, the Jewish leadership, that's who he's, the Hebrew leadership. So these guys are all Judases. They're not Christ, like they're the Judas. And so, but, again, if you have the evidence, and this woman sucks as a reporter, but she's asking legitimate questions, it's not like your opinion. I think they did this. You can fucking prove it. Like I have lots of opinions I can't prove. And even if I can prove them, they're not, I don't have a Justice Department behind me or a media behind me or anybody, that's going to make it, something, right? All of us in the truth community can talk shit about what we think's happened, but we don't have access to the actual evidence. Like we can't go to the FBI and say, give me all these files about the plans and all the agents that were there and, and interview these agents. Like you could start interviewing these people and, held them accountable, right? Or, any of them. And they weren't FBI agents. They were FBI agent assets that were there. They were assets of the FBI. They were people who were embedded in some of these right-wing communities or some of these things. So they weren't actual FBI agents that ushered them in, cops or whatever. Crooked cops, like he's saying. Then start fucking arresting people and start showing, the evidence and the plans. You would have access to the plans, the dialogue and the orders to, you'd have these operations that were done. And if you don't have that, then you don't have shit. Like you're just some fucking asshole at some bar talking shit about your theories. I think this happened. No, you could go fucking find it, right? So.
Walking around, they're looking always in this night. They weren't in. They were being ushered into the building.
There's no.
She's a lying piece of shit. There might be evidence. He's not either providing it. There's no evidence of that, sir.
You had a bunch of dirty cops, and frankly, what they did was weaponization of our government.
But, sir, let me ask you about Todd Blanche.
Listen to me. Listen to me.
Let's talk about Todd Blanche.
There's tremendous evidence. There's nothing but evidence.
There's nothing but evidence. Like, you're saying that, like, just to your dumb fuck audience, then present it. You're the president. Tell your fucking, tell your puppet Todd Blanche to go release it and start interviewing these people, and or have congressional hearings and interviewing all these people in front of, whatever it is, I mean, whatever, grand jury, whatever the fuck you need to do. Start putting out some indictments and bringing these people in and have these things displayed in front of the American people. So either he does have evidence and they won't let him take down the government in this manner. They won't let him, they won't let him do the FBI covert operations. They won't let him expose it. Or he doesn't have it, right? Like, so it's one thing or another. So why are you paying these people off then with American taxpayer dollars when it's a losing thing? The other piece of this is Iran knows that Trump is not liked worldwide. Like, he is just a complete bonehead and like whatever. His shit he's talking. Like, nobody likes him in the world. And people are turning on Israel, globally. And America is going to face a huge switch from what Trump is now, in terms of the government, until what he will be when the Democrats take over. And then in 2028 when there's a Democratic president. And, they're going to reverse everything that Trump did. And Iran just has to sit back. And so Israel knows this as well, so they have a limited opportunity to grab as much as they can. Not finders keepers, but possession's 9/10 of the law. They need to possess these lands around Israel. They need to expand and do it quickly. Weaken all these countries, grab some assets, oil fields, whatever it is. They need more resources. And they got to use American military before America collapses. So this is all on the table. We saw this shit yesterday. And where he walks out. So this is the big moment here.
Thank you, darling. Have a good time.
Mr. President, let's please.
Okay, so one can become overwhelmed. So let's just go back to the beginning where he said those folks were ushered in by the FBI. And let's stop right there. Let's stop right there. Let's bring it up. Because then he continued to lie more and lie more and lie more. And then you get,
Again, you don't have proof he's lying. He just hasn't presented any evidence. But anyways, that's fucking Mika. This is Mika Manzinski. So this was about no new wars.
So, when you say I promised, I didn't promise anything. I don't like these endless wars. This is not an endless war. We've been doing this for 3 months. Much of it has been under the form, a pretty good form of ceasefire. The blockade has been amazing. Our Navy is amazing. Our military is the best in the world. Hey, we took over a very powerful country, Venezuela, a lot of soldiers, big, strong military. We took over Venezuela.
So she asked him about promising no new wars. But we know he promised because that was one of his big things, right?
In a matter of minutes, we destroyed the capability of Iran in a matter of days. Nobody's ever seen anything like it.
Okay, so this is same old bullshit. So this is April 27, 2023.
Oh, he's going to start a war because they said I had that personality to start a war. They remember that? Oh, we can't vote for him. He's going to start a war. No, I used my personality that we didn't have to have wars. I was the first president in decades who started no new wars. Who started no new wars and no new wars. No new wars. We don't need the wars, foreign lands, countries you've never heard of, countries that don't even want us there. I was the first president in decades who started no new wars. I was the first president in decades.
This was one of the things that I praised Trump about his first term. Because, when he was being elected in 2016, he said he wanted a North Korea military style parade, which he eventually got, which was a dud. But he wanted to roll out our military stuff on the streets, and he was asked about using nuclear weapons. He goes, I have no problem using them. And so he talked a lot of shit, and he said a lot of shit other presidents or other candidates wouldn't say. And so you had no idea what we were going to get with him. Like, he was like this version of Trump who was ready to take Greenland over and invade Canada and doing what he's doing in Venezuela and Iran and threatening all these things. That was a version of Trump that we thought we might get in 2016. I had no idea. But he didn't start any new wars. He didn't, these bullshit wars where and there's always good people in these countries. In every religion and every group of people, there's going to be a percentage of people that I consider, these are people with spiritual tendencies more than anything else. Like, well, maybe I'll talk about that at the end. But I don't, it's not about doing good deeds. It's about, people moving forward spiritually. Are you moving forward, right? That's more than anything else. But there's people who what I consider my people, my group. The people like me in other countries. There's people like you in other countries. You may be like me, whatever it is. But, whatever you are in terms of, there's nice people, good people. There's going to be people like that. Every country, every religion, every place. And, innocent people, kids who have potential, all these things. And so when you do a war, you are those people are going to get hurt. And, it's not the assholes who run the country. And they very seldom get hurt. The people who are in power very seldom suffer from the effects of war. They're not the ones who are going to pay the price. It's usually the good people or the poor people or whatever. And so Trump didn't start any new wars, these bullshit wars that we were doing. And, that was praiseworthy. And he's right. He didn't start new wars. But this is a fucking nightmare what he's done. Is first, and on the behalf of Israel, right? All he can say is, Israel is telling me to do this. I'm a puppet of Israel. That's he'd have to admit that. That's the only way he could tell the truth, because none of the other things make sense, right?
Who started no new wars. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We never got into a war with me. I have a great record. We had peace. We had prosperity. We had no wars. We had no wars. That started no wars. We didn't have a war. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will expel the warmongers from our government. We will expel the warmongers from our government. And we had no wars. When you see all the people that died in these horrible wars in the Middle East and everything else, countries didn't want us. Look at Trump. Just look at this guy. He's going to go to war. He's going to take us. No. Look at me. I'm the one that kept us out of war.
All right, you get the idea. This goes on. I'm only about halfway through it. This was obviously promised. All the Charlie Kirk people, there are lots of people that didn't want the Tucker Carlson people, those type of Republicans, all the people didn't want more wars. And Trump promised over and over again and said he's the guy that won't do this. And then he got completely worked by Israel. He allowed them to complete their genocide and demolish the Gaza Strip, was planning to build his own hotel there. That goofy video that he put up, all that shit he did. And now, of course, what's happening in Iran. And then the rest of it, it's imploding. Trump's imploding. He's, again, like what I was saying last night, this thing with Iran, I think, ends with him dropping a fucking bomb. If they allow him to do that, I don't know why they wouldn't. It seems like that's why they want him there. Imagine if he drops a nuclear weapon on or unleashes nuclear missiles on Iran. And then, the fallout to all these other countries, they're all going to suffer. And everyone, this is the end of America, just no credibility. The UN, everybody going up against America, like this horrific war crime. You commit some kind of horrific war crime. And then, the response. It can't, once you do that, then what's China and Russia going to do? And so, all these things. So get to a point, you drop a nuclear bomb on them, you ain't getting fucking oil out of there. The catastrophe of a resource, all the resources that flow through the Strait of Hormuz, fallout from a nuclear weapon is quite substantial. Whoever's on the wrong side of the wind, their country is going to get fucked. If it blows back towards the Middle East and Israel, it's one thing. It blows into, the countries to the west or east of the Iran, and it could go both ways, right? So Europe had nuclear fallout from Chernobyl. There was radioactive material from Chernobyl in like England and shit, and even in like Canada. Like the winds of the world go, like this is when if there's multiple nuclear weapons used, there'll be radioactive fallout throughout the world. And that's a fucking nightmare. Like, people be getting sick for years. They'll be decimated, the population. You don't even have to hit, your target with you could wreck the fucking world. Where people can't go outside and shit, right? People wearing fucking gas masks because of nuclear radiation particles and dust blowing around the world. So, this is where we're at right now. So here's where he said it.
What changed? Because you insisted no new wars.
First of all, I didn't guarantee no war.
Yeah. So he has, like, just the dumbest of fucks. Like, any Trumper who's here, I mean, you voted for Trump, like, that's embarrassing. And you're a truther, and and I can understand the vote for Trump. Because, Kamala Harris, right? I mean, if you felt like you had to vote, Trump made more sense than Kamala Harris. So that's that. But if you were a truther, or you were some person putting out content, you ignored the fake assassination attempt, all the bullshit that Trump was doing, and like, Kamala Harris wasn't going to make America great again. Like, we know what Kamala Harris would have been. It would have been more of the Biden bullshit. Whatever. I mean, she wasn't going to be president. There wasn't an option. They were picking Trump. But if you got duped by this motherfucker, and you're still duped, I mean, it's one thing to vote for Trump because, Biden and Harris and the Democrats. But it's another thing to still be backing this guy when he's fucking you right in the ass, right? Like, your whole future's being, and again, I believe he's doing God's work. Like, I don't love it as an ego, but I know in a soul that this is what needs to happen. But the guy's always been a piece of shit. Like, he's got poor pick character. He's, like, really, psychologically fucked. And, they're allowing him to do things they have never allowed any president to do. Act with utter impunity. And no president would want to do these things, right? Like, he's doing radical things, which can only lead to disaster. Like, he's running America into the ground every way, shape, or form. America's credibility, America's finances, like doing everything on behalf of Israel, and just openly lying about his policies. Like, he, clearly was campaigned on no new wars. And now he's saying, I didn't do that. I didn't campaign on that. I never made that promise. Well, there's video fucking tape roll and lots of it, right? Every time you open your fucking big-ass trap, your ghoul hole, you started talking about shit like this, and then you're reversing it. So every Trumper should be, like, even more pissed off because he took your hopes and dreams. He lied to you. He fucking grifted on you. You should hate Trump more than you hated Biden or Obama. Like, if you're a right-wing person, you should hate Trump more than, if you hated Obama, then you should hate Trump. Because Obama didn't grift on you and play on your hopes and dreams and say all the things you wanted to hear. He did that for the Democrats. And then he went to all those wars. I mean, they're the ones who should be mad at him. But Trump's the one who fucked you over. He's fucking you right now, and, like, you don't even know it. So it's just brutal. So I'm just scrolling through Twitter here.
As President of the United States, I will always support Jewish Americans, and I will always be a friend and a champion to the Jewish people. I have been. And I will.
There's some kind of negativity there. Like, it isn't.
Will say, if you go back 10, 12, 15 years ago at the most, the strongest lobby in Washington was the Jewish lobby. It was Israel.
Yeah, we've seen this before. It's an old clip. It's just about dumb fuck Trumpers, but it doesn't matter. Like, there's no apparatus to stop Trump right now. And then, it'll be 27, the January of 27. So we're next year will be when they swear in all the Democrats, when Trump gets hammered in November. There'll be the fallout, whatever. The Republicans jumping ship on Trump when they realize he's going to be a lame duck. and like, you know, a lame cuck. And, you know, but it's like the damage has been done. And America is fucked. Like, America's done. Like, whatever happens in the world, you know, this is a fallen empire. And it isn't because of Trump, and it isn't because of Biden, it isn't because of Trump won. You know, this has been going on for years. This was never supposed to last forever, like America being the number one country, because empires all collapse. It's the people, it's the culture, it's the entitlement, it's the debt, it's all the things, right? You know, America serves its purpose for the people that run the system or for God, and then then it fades into something else, right? And then hard times. You know, during the British Empire's rule, it was a small country with massive amount of resources around the world. You know, the sun never sets on the British Empire. They were controlling countries all over the world, in Africa and India and Asia and America. I mean, like fucking all over every continent. Britain had, you know, lands, and so did these European countries. And these European countries were fucking, they had horrible times. They had depression, they had, you know, starvation, you know, broke times. There were times they didn't have enough fuel to heat their homes, like shit like that. Even when they were an empire, because, you know, you have ups and downs. You know, America has had a consistent lifestyle, with some people falling, you know, under the whatever, off the, you know, whatever you would call that, you know, falling below poverty line. You know, richer people, sometimes there was the Depression, and then since the Depression, though, it's been pretty consistent lifestyle here in America, and that's not supposed to last forever. In fact, it's surprising it lasted this long. And so it's happening. Like, you're going to see it, and then everyone's going to realize, oh, man, our lifestyle's fucked. And then whatever solutions they have. But, you know, there's going to be chaos and other things going on. And then once that all kicks in, people are going to have to question, the reason for your existence. Because it isn't going to be material success. You're not going to have that. Anyways, you know, the original statement, yeah, I mean, he goes on his own rant there at the end, but I'm editing here and I want to add this. You notice how he was reading? I will always support Israel. Like, these are talking points he was given. You know, he usually doesn't read things, you know, but they were like, all right, you're going to say this. It's what you got to say, and this is the way you got to say it. And then, of course, he said the thing about Congress being anti-Semitic. That was his own little rift. But before that, he was, you know, told by his masters what to say. So all of a sudden, Rosie O'Donnell, who had to flee the country after her rap beef with Donald J. Trump, has credibility again.
But you've never been afraid to use your voice and speak out, which I really commend about you.
If you grew up in New York, you knew he was an asshole and a liar from day one. And I am 64 years old and my whole life here. So I remember when his planes were repossessed off the runways at LaGuardia. I remember when he was broke. I remember when he would call up places and pretend to be his own publicist. He is a con man, he is a narcissist, and he is a psychopath, if you ask me.
Who asked you? Oh, Variety.
I think he'll be greeted at MSG tomorrow night.
With a lot of booze, and I'm happy to hear it.
Yeah.
Boom. All right. MSG's tonight. Well, it will be over the game. A must-win for the San Antonio Spurs. We're down 2-0. 2 home losses. Anyways. So, well, I guess Rosie's credible now. Okay, still Monday, June 8th here. I'm not going to accumulate too much content today about Trump because I know more shit's going to happen and things. He's just totally unraveling, and, you know, whatever course that takes and whatever disastrous consequences come from it, we'll see. You know, I'm a practical person, like I'm a realist. And I want to show you something. You know, when I talk about more and more people are coming to the realization that it doesn't look good. It doesn't look like things are going to turn around. I mean, it's becoming, and people who have been feeling that way for a while are seeing it. You know, it's, if it was like, oh, there's a 50% chance of it being turned around. There's a 40% chance of it being turned around. There's a 10%, you know, it's getting less and less to where people are like, you know, it's not going to be turned around. And yet, very few people are thinking about what to do about that personally. You know, if the government and the powers that be aren't going to save a system, save your lifestyle, save all these types of things, and you're miserable anyway. Like most people, their lives suck, miserable, they're not, I mean, how many people are actually feel good about where they're going, where they've been, in terms of goals and future. There's people who are winning, materialistically, but they're still not all that happy, people's relationships, like people and young people are, I mean, most of them are depressed. And some it's about not having a future, but, it's probably more depressing if everything stayed the same or kept on going and, your lifestyle stayed the same, but more and more, how many people are lonely, detached, don't have real life, relationships and things in their life that are fulfilling. And so it's probably even more scary that this is going to go on like this. More and more time on the internet, more and more isolation, less and less real world things, right? All these things. So, it's there needs to be a solution. And most people who talk about this or are so-called black pill don't have a solution because they're still attached to a bullshit religion, or they just don't have the idea that you could connect to divinity within you and you could change. And your life will change because you've changed. And you could actually have real goals that matter. You could have a real purpose in your existence. And so, I talk about that significantly, and it should be probably more than 50% of the time. But it's a very simple idea, and people are either going to go with it or not, right? And so we have this thing with gratefulness meditation. I had like a personal thing. And this is how I deal with stuff that's, should be a real bum out. So I've started this playlist. It's, there are these sittings on this symbol. The first video got 91 views. The second one, 51 views. The third one, 27, 32, which is okay. I'm not, bummed by that, right? But when I purposely named Gratefulness Meditation Channel with 2 L's because I knew it wasn't going to get the kind of love, and I knew there'd be other gratefulness meditations out there. So by putting 2 L's in there, it assured that people would be able to find it. There's 1,970 subscribers. And, of all those people, many of them are pockets of future people. I'm getting, in terms of these sittings, meditations that are given, there is, you see the views, right? 32 views, 27 views, people who are doing the playlist. And, I don't count my, like I'm not a numbers person, but numbers are very telling in terms of where people are. And so I did, I do the meditations. I act as a preceptor where the meditation, the transmission flows through me as a preceptor. And then I participate as a practitioner, an abhyasi, a spiritual aspirant. And I was doing sitting number 2 last night. And I search for this, my channel comes up because YouTube knows I'm looking for my own channel. But when I search for it here,
welcome to the.
When I search for it,
this every day for 20.
Here, when I search for it here, this is what came up, right? This got 17 million views. These are gratitude meditations. 16 million views. 20. This one got 3.1 million views. This one that showed up last night. This has got 300,000 views, right? These meditations, 2 million views. Gratefulness meditation, 163,000 views. And these meditations suck. Like I can, So last night when I looked on my phone, this one came up here. Magnetize Miracles Instantly, Gratitude Meditation to Shift Your Reality by Mary Kate.
The Gratitude Meditation. This meditation is designed to create massive shifts in your reality.
Okay, so it's not going to do shit. Right? And I'm going to switch over to voiceover in a second now to explain all this. And then this one here, this got 1,300, how much did they get? It got 17 million views.
21 days, and you will see your world transform. It is very powerful. Remember to feel gratitude for all that you already have and all that you are in the process of.
Okay, so if you do this thing, again, these things are guided.
Capacity to feel.
This isn't a meditation, right? Because a person's fucking talking. These guided meditations, like if you need a person to talk you through the meditation, you're not meditating. You can get into a meditative state when somebody's talking, but it's a barrier. And then the other one here.
Take a deep breath in.
And then the music. All right, so let me switch over to a voiceover. So let me explain this, because most people wouldn't understand this. But these are more affirmations. And, if you participate and you do a good job with it, at best, it might change some of your beliefs. It might, you're trying to force the idea of gratitude into your internal world. Like, let's say you're a complaining piece of shit that's always complaining, depressed. I mean, what do you think the kind of people that are going to do this, right? People who want to change their lives. People whose lives suck and they want to change their lives, and they find out about some sort of guided meditation, some new age people, who are, miserable in their existence and to whatever capacity. And so if they want to transform their world and their lives, and they find something like this, and they're like, all right, I'll give it a whirl. So you're supposed to do that meditation every day for 21 days, and it's going to transform your life. And it's, an unrealistic expectation for an affirmation. So when I talk about and be grateful, it's a process. And I wasn't a grateful person, angry, frustrated, miserable, and, not just somebody who would look for being more critical or whatever, right? Negative. And so that was kind of my tendency as a person. And, I understood it's easy to be grateful for good things. You have to be a front runner, to be somebody who's grateful for the good things in life. It's always when you're happy, yeah, sure, you can be grateful. You make the big shot and you point up to God and you say, yeah, God was with me when I made that big shot. But when you miss the big shot, that's when you need to be grateful, right? When you get bad news, like my heart thing, for example. My heart thing was undesirable. But, I now can say I'm fully grateful for it for lots of reasons. Good things that have come out of it. My meditations have improved. It's still a drag. There's bad things about it, but being grateful for the things that suck, right? And, this thing about manifesting things in the New Age tradition, the New Age consciousness, they've taken old school spiritual stuff. A lot of the stuff doesn't work anymore. Mantras, affirmations, things that they call meditation that aren't. And, let me describe the meditation process. The great thing about the Sajmarg meditation is there's no bells and whistles and there's nothing material. So in terms of there's no music, there's nothing, because that stimulates your ears, which pulls you out to your, you can feel emotional music and sounds and SMAR or S, what is it? ASMAR or AMSR, I don't know. ASMR, I think. I misspell all the acronyms if you guys haven't noticed. But, like that kind of stuff, it can make you feel soothed. It can affect you emotionally because it's vibrations, and those vibrations goes into your ears and has an effect on your system. But it's not meditation. And it's not God, right? Like everything's God, but that's not a pathway to God. Smells like incense, pleasant smells, those are nice, right? Being in a place that smells good. It's, that's not a bad thing, but again, it's pulling you out to your sensory, where you're being stimulated on a sensory basis. And then, sight, whatever it is, visualization, eyesight, these things. And so, And then there's the posture. Now, I had, there was a young couple that would come to our house, back in my original farm. We used to milk cows. And they didn't drink milk, but they milked the cow and gave it away to their friends. And they did that when we were traveling. And they were, cool about it. They were great. There was a great young couple. They were living off the grid. They don't do that anymore. I'm not in touch with them. But the guy was an ex-football player whose family owned some kind of gym, very athletic. And he was doing something called Vipassana yoga. And they would meditate for 12 hours and sit cross-legged, and it would get excruciatingly painful until they just, he said you'd reach a state where the pain would just drive you into meditation, which, all right, but that's just not how it's supposed to work, right? There's the idea of posture, in the 8 limbs of Patanjali's yoga, Ashtanga yoga. Posture or asana. Asana needs pose, posture. And, sitting cross-legged is important. I mean, there's these different poses they would go into meditation in the Hatha yoga tradition. But in the Sajmark tradition, you sit in a comfortable spot. There's going to be noises in the outside world. You could be in a city. There could be honking horns in India, like all kinds of shit. Or wherever you have in America, we have a lawnmower going on. Our neighbors getting their lawn cut or whatever. You have things like that. And so when you meditate, there's going to be sounds and things, but you ignore them. And you want to sit in a way that your body you're not aware of your body. So a comfortable pose. Whatever is comfortable for you in a way that you're, sitting up, but you're not, you can't like lay down and go to sleep, but, you're sitting up and you're meditating in a comfortable way so that, you're not thinking about your body. And the reason is you go inside. You don't need any DMT. You don't need any fucking ayahuasca or shrooms or something. Those are all physical things. Those are material things that have a chemical effect on you or have impair you or poisonous, some kind of, whatever. They do some kind of thing that, neurotoxin or something that does something to drive you into an altered state of consciousness. It's not about experience. It's about finding God inside of you. So you sit in a comfortable pose and you meditate on the divinity within your heart. And there's no bells and whistles and there's no promises of a better life or, money or power. There's none of that shit, right? And there shouldn't be. The idea is that your physical life, your material life is there to serve as a vehicle to help with your spiritual evolution. So it's the opposite of New Age things where New Age philosophy is you meditate to make your life better. You connect to God to make your life better. It's the opposite of what's supposed to happen. It's demonic, where your ego is looking to use your soul and your soul's connection to God to better your life, have a better life, and it doesn't work that way, right? I mean, I guess it can, but it's not what's supposed to happen. You're supposed to suffer materially. I mean, if suffering is beneficial, so that you can move forward spiritually. So people don't want to hear that shit. So like like I said before, whatever Jesus said that was truthful and about this kind of thing that I'm talking about, if they went with those teachings, Christianity would have disappeared. There's been so many higher developed souls that have come down and given some kind of teaching like what I'm talking about here. And people don't want to hear that shit. So the thing never takes off. So they have to promise things like heaven or warn you against hell. They have to use fear and temptation. They have to use all these things to lure people in. And by that time, it's too fucking late because what you're doing isn't spiritual, right? This is why humanity's fucked and we continue to go in the wrong direction. And there needs to be drastic fucking change, right? At the end of my last video, I was talking about a genetic mutation that is, going to bring about a totally different person that's human beings that are hardwired in a completely different way. And I know that's going to need to happen. I'll talk a little bit more about that at the end of this voiceover. But I want to get back to the gratitude thing. So, in terms of gratitude, the gratitude thing, if you want to be a grateful person, you have to learn to be grateful for the things that suck. Like that's job number one. there's these 10 maxims of Sajmark, and the fifth one is take miseries as divine blessings for your own good and be thankful. And the seventh one is be not revengeful for the wrongs done by others. Take them with gratitude as heavenly gifts. And that's 20% of the, of the maxims. So that's 1/5 of the maxims. And the other one's all, it's implied. And so that's the essential aspect. So when I first started to work on gratitude, being in a marriage with my ex who was, someone who was abused physically and sexually by her CEO dad, and emotionally and physically by her mom. And, in a way that was like she was just fucked up. And, we had a fucked up marriage because of it. She was always threatened suicide, cutting herself, all the things that I've talked about so much in the Journey series. And, it got to the point where I said, I'm just going to have to be grateful for this. Like, I have no choice. I can't leave. There's no divorce isn't on the table. The kids were, I had no options other than to make the best of it. And I knew it wasn't going to get better. Like, by that time it was towards the end, and I just had to be positive with her and eat a lot of shit and just be grateful. And I, worked on it. Like, I just worked on taking an attitude where I would just be grateful for all this shit I was eating on a daily basis. Like, I can say that in terms of my spiritual journey, that I did that. Like, I know that I did that, in terms of, and it had a positive effect. Like, I learned how to be grateful. It helped me keep, what people wonder how I've kept my YouTube channel afloat, even though YouTube has mistreated me and all the other truthers in ways that is just uncool. In so many different ways, in so many different phases. And there are all these other people who've had channels, when I had a channel, or even after I have a channel, who just quit after a while. They just broke, they get pissed off, and then they just say, fuck you to YouTube. And, because it's an unfair situation. It's supposed to be a partnership, but it is a completely one-sided situation. And the reason I've been able to do that is I can focus on being grateful. I can look at the good things that I'm getting out of this channel, be positive, focus on those things, and not look at the unfair treatment, right? Because I've learned how to do that, and it goes against my tendencies. And, and I can do that from a meditative state with the idea that, they have like the 5 stages of grief, and the best stage, the stage where you've evolved is when you accept it. But gratitude is better than acceptance. Like, you can accept something that's bad, but when you're grateful for it, when you learn to be grateful for the things that suck, and not just because you see hidden benefits and silver linings, but because it's just, it's benefiting you spiritually. And it comes from God. So you be grateful because it comes from God. There must be some reason for it. It must be good. So, it's a hard sell, right? And so when I look at this, when I see these things that I know that aren't even real meditations, that don't have spiritual energy, that promise things they can't deliver, that have goofy new age music, and this, ASMR fucking lady talking with her fucking bullshit voice. It's 2 different people. That's not the same channel. It's 2 videos that sound the same. And it gets 17 million views and people go to it. And my channel is, non-existent, right, for the most part. It's almost, if it, it wasn't my channel, no one would see the videos. Not just because YouTube is blocking it, because it doesn't have anything to appeal to anybody. People don't understand the meditation. They're not going to go through all the playlists and learn about it. They're not going to put in the time and effort. And then they can't do it, right? Even after all that. So going back to that young couple that milked our cows, I had a better meditation than his Vipassana meditation. Because the Vipassana doesn't have cleaning, doesn't have transmission. And I knew from what he was saying, and I could tell from his condition, he was somebody who was putting a lot of effort into this meditation. And what I had to offer was better. But, and this was an open person, someone who was, I admired these young couple for their ability. This guy built a small, tiny house, and then they bought a yurt, and they were feeding their house with spring water, and they had a whole fucking thing going on. And, positive energy. The wife knew, she went to school and knew all about plants and foraging. Like, she went to school for, whatever the for the study of plants or whatever that, major is, whatever they call that major. And they both, had skills and they were, positive people, but they weren't capable of doing this, But from my experience, I can say 100% that the Sajmarg meditation is a solution because it helps people to change. And I have a master's in counseling. I've worked in this kind of field where change is necessary in treatment centers and outpatient clinics, treatment centers where people, kids were teenage sex offenders and criminals and they were going nowhere fast. And it was mandated by the court that they change, that they go through a treatment program and change and stop being a piece of shit sex offender. And, parole officers and prison cells waiting for them, many of them, dredges of society, people who are going to have shitty lives, institutionalized the rest of their life. And, they had all the motivation to change. There's nothing worse than being a sex offender in prison or in society. I mean, it's like the lowest of the low. And so, they didn't want to be that, most of them. And yet they had these compulsions through, their own abuse or whatever twisted things they had or some scars or whatever it was, right? And then all the other people out there who are just miserable with their lives and lonely and, all desperate. And, you think that all those people would have the compulsion to reach up to something that could actually help them change, which is what the Sajmarg system does by connecting you to the divinity within you and cleaning out the things that block your spiritual evolution. And, I talk about it here quite often. And there's dismal numbers, right? Like dismal fucking numbers. In my YouTube channel, Gratefullness Meditation. Of course, you guys know about how Heartfulness has crapped out on the whole system, in the first place, which I'm not going to get into here. And so this is depressing. Like, why should I bother? Like, why should I bother talking about this? Why should I? I've made hours and hours of content and, a lot of what I talk about is speculation. I get 80% of something or 50% of something, right. I don't know. I can't see all the details, but I can say with complete conviction that the Sajmarg system of meditation, and not just that the system, but just the idea of connecting to divinity within you, like finding a way to connect to your soul and your soul's path and God, whatever the system is. I mean, I think the Sajmarg system is the best system for that in history, but people have done it without the system. It's existed where people have found, there's been saints and spiritual people, I mean, not a lot of them, but certainly, some, maybe even millions, right, over the course of history. The human beings can do that. It's something we can do. And you see these people, they rise above the common person because they reach a level of consciousness because of this, some sort of practice that they do to connect to the divinity within them, and it transforms them. They go to a next level, and they, by going to that next level, they make the world a better place, and they make, they help the other people around them rise up to a higher level. It's happened over and over again throughout history. And so it's a proven way of changing people from the better. The only proven way of really changing people for the better. Like it's, like it's 100% successful rate if you do it. If you connect to the divinity within you, truly, you're going to improve. You might quit. You might get mad at God, for the reasons I'm talking about right here. You might get depressed. You might lose yourself. You might fall. But for that time where you're connecting to God, and people have experienced that themselves, where, you'll see some piece of shit alcoholic or abusive piece of shit, and they're about to go to jail and lose their family, and they'll find God for a short period of time. And they'll stop drinking, and they'll get better. And, for that period of time where they had the motivation and, they have the wherewithal and the opportunity, but then the shit starts catching up to them, their habits, their, misdeeds, they can't sustain it, and then they go back to the alcohol. But during that period of time, they did it. Like people all have these moments where they find a way to connect to divinity and they change and transform for some period of time. And it doesn't stick, but it's there for a bit. And so it's proven. It's proven for almost everybody who's seen it in other people or experienced it themselves. It's a proven way of changing for the better. The only proven way. Because psychology and all these things, New Age practices, unless they truly somehow bring God into it and you find a way to internally connect to God and start changing who you are on the inside, the change isn't real change, right? It's contrived, it's performative, right? It's, fake. It's not authentic. So I know for a fact that this is 100%, and Sajmark is the best system for ways that I've described before. And so if I look at the fucking numbers, these bullshit fucking gratefulness meditations that people put up there, and I see them all the time. Because every time I look for my own channel on my phone, I'll search the two L's, because, none of these people are spelling with two L's. And I spelled it with two L's, you can see, I don't have the thing up here, but when I searched for it on my YouTube channel, I searched for it for two L's, and they said, do you want it for one L, like properly spelled? And I go, no, and I clicked on the two L's, and my channel didn't even come up, even though my channel is the same channel on my computer as it is on my phone. And so it won't even show you my own channel, which is, because these other channels these meditations have millions of views, right? And I think maybe I even searched for Gratefulness Meditation channel. That's how I have to find it on my phone. So it might even be different that way. But either way, I see my channel that's got almost no, views. There's a handful of people leave comments. And so, maybe 30 people are doing the meditations on a regular basis. There's a playlist for people to meditate. The star symbol is a way to increase sensitivity and to bring, divine light into your heart and, in a way that it spreads to other people. So I'm doing a playlist for that. And if I looked at the numbers, it would be like, what the fuck? Like if I look at my numbers on my regular Pockets of Future channel, as opposed to these shitty, fake fucking truther channels. And, if I look at, and these, personalities and all these people get more views. And then, certainly with the Gratefulness Meditation, I would get depressed. It's depressing. It's like fucking, it sucks. But, one of the great teachings of Sajmark's system, I became a preceptor in the system. The year before I became a preceptor, I wrote to Master Charji, and I had housemates, in a shared house. There's a guy who ran a garage. The other guy was a child entertainer. He used to dress up. He used to stand on stilts. And he would go to parties and play games. He had all these different games. Called himself the Games Man. He's probably dead now or really old. He was probably 15 years older than me. The other guy ended up marrying a woman who moved into the house. But it's just the two of them. And I get a letter from Master Charji. And I read the letter, and it's kind of like chastising me. And, these guys weren't like, this is in Massachusetts, but these guys were kind of new agey. They weren't, asshole friends that I used to have. But they're still making fun of me in some way. The masters, And, and the letter didn't make sense. It's like he wrote it didn't make sense to the letter I wrote him, right? And it was like, what the fuck is this? Like, was this a mistake? I don't know. So I saved all these letters. And then a year or so later, 2 years later, I was made a preceptor. And a bunch of people came and started the meditation. And there's a high turnover rate because there's no community. There's nothing in the material world that, unless the person really feels the energy, the transmission, and even then people quit. People have transformational type of situation and they still quit. It's a sad thing, right? And all these people were there when I came back from India. There was a young Indian guy, and he was, someone who later became a preceptor himself. Kind of turned out to be an asshole, but he was somebody who was, he put the word out about the meditation, and he was going to school. I was in Albuquerque at University of New Mexico, or one of those, whatever state school that's there. And he, he got people to show up, and then some people saw some flyers. And I had about 7 people. And then he moved out, and everybody else quit. And, I was going through like this, this kind of sucks, right? Because I'm making time for all these people, and, this is a great thing. And then there are people that came and went. It was a high level of people who might meditate out in that area. And at some point, I just got fucking bummed out. I was like hating people. And I'm like, this sucks. People can't fucking do this, and wasted my time. And I remembered the letter. And I went back and read it, and the letter totally applied to the situation. Like, it was written and I received it like a year and a half before I needed it, which made it that much more powerful because I'm like, holy shit, right? And the one line that he uses quite often, Master Chargy, was, you do the work and you leave the results to God. You don't worry about the results. And then he said in the thing, that's why we don't get upset when people come and take sittings and go and leave. And when I read the thing, it made it sound like I was going to quit. Right? That was the other thing when I first read it. But now I understood he was literally saying you were going to experience this in the future, and this is how you deal with it. And I was like, holy fuck, this is amazing, right? And so, the other aspect to it is, like I was talking about in my last video, in the spiritual world, some of it's about planting seeds. And so everything that I say here, and I keep on talking about divinity within, and most people brush it off or don't hear it or, reject it or like the idea but don't want to do anything about it. But saying it's there and the energy's there and people are connecting to the energy, whether they end up doing the meditation, and that connection is formed and their soul likes it. Their soul's going to want to, under better circumstances in the future, right? And, there are lots of people who fell in the Sage-Mark system. So there was this French guy named André Poiret, and he was somebody that really excelled in terms of the Sage-Mark system. He was the only person outside of India who had made it to the so-called central region through this yatra process, the journey of the soul. There's 13 spiritual points. And there was some bad gathering where he brought in these people who were psychics and, they kind of were trying to take over. Chargy was with Babaji, who was the master. Babaji was really sick. And some guy, told a story about going to his room and praying, because the energy was really off. And, Chargy wrote about these things in his diary. And one of the things, André Poiret, who was on the verge of being, as far as reaching a spiritual level that is really not common, right? He was going to be in the center of the central region, far beyond the saints and great souls that people know about. And there was a guy that was coming from Madagascar. I guess is a French-speaking place, and this guy spoke French. And he had a connection to France, and he was a black guy named Reiko. And André Poiret wouldn't let the guy participate because he was black. And Chargy and Babaji are like, what the fuck, right? Because they're, Indians, right? And this guy, he kept on trying to, they couldn't believe that this guy who really was a spiritual person was this prejudice, right? And, so everybody knows about that story because it's in the literature. But years later, I was, maybe I'll put that picture in here. I'll put that picture. I went to India, and I had written the book The Choice, which is a truther book. Some of you guys have read it and whatever. I would probably write it in a different way now. And I've written the sequel, which I haven't published yet. And then there's another sequel, which I'll probably never write because of the videos. But anyways, I was bringing it to the ashram, and I was going to give a copy to Master Chargy. And my family and I just had a 12-hour layover in fucking Saudi Arabia. And we got there. And you can see in the picture, hopefully I'll put the picture in. And I'm sitting there and, somebody comes up to me and goes, Chargy will come see you, right? Which is, and I'm just fresh off the plane. I haven't slept. My hair's disheveled. I'm just I don't feel good. I'm just, really? You're like, now? But, you got to go when you go. And so I went and, I sat down. He called me up and I handed him the book and I said, it's he was a science fiction fan. And I'm like, this is like science fiction, Sage-Mark science fiction, in a truther way. And he put his hand on it and he said, okay, and sort of blessed the book. And all these people are like, holy shit. They saw the cover and they wanted the book. And the first guy that came up to me was from Madagascar. And so I asked him, about this story with this guy Reiko and André Poiret. And he said the guy Reiko, who was prejudiced against, ended up trying to form his own group because he was a lawyer. And in Madagascar, a lawyer, the name for lawyer is master, right? So people were calling him master. And then he started to think he was the master. And he fell. And I'm like, Jesus fucking Christ, does anybody fucking make this? Is there any fucking success story other than like the masters of the system? Like, does everyone have to turn out to be a fucking asshole, right? And, I've thought about this quite a bit because, there's these 6 Danish people that Babaji loved. I mean, all the Danish people, but 6 in particular who were brought up to the Main region. There's the heart region, the Main region, the central region. And one of them wrote a couple of books, and he had done LSD. And Babaji, so he got some kind of spiritual punishment for that because, he wasn't supposed to do that, and amongst other things. These people were brought up to a higher level, then your discipline has to go up with the level. You just have to, you just have to be disciplined in your behavior. Master Charji's father, was a giant of a man in lots of ways. He wrote a whole chapter about him in a book called Down Memory Lane. He lost his wife when his kids were like 5, 3, and 2 years old or something. He had 3 sons and a daughter that died shortly after. His wife died basically in childbirth, and the daughter eventually died. So the guy never remarried, and he was a brilliant guy. And he was in the highest level of the central region, and he got into stamp collection, an innocent little hobby, and his attention to the material world pulled him out of the central region. And there was a long discussion about it, and he just wouldn't give up his fucking stamp collection. He had one eye, and he couldn't fucking stamps, right? He gave it away for stamps, and so, there's there's very few success stories without some kind of spiritual fall. And I thought about that, and I realized, well, even if you fell spiritually, if you just tried a little bit, like if you just made some progress, then it'll be easier in your next life. Like you're setting yourself up. Like I just, whatever, I went through different things, and I realized for myself, I just had to keep on, punching the clock and going forward and, grind out whatever I could. Especially, when Charji died and Dodgy turned out to be a piece of shit and doing all this stuff. And even in terms of the YouTube channel, I'm just grinding it out. Like I just come in and, I don't think about the views. I don't think about the lack of, it would be soul crushing. Like if I looked at it that way, like if I was doing it for numbers, and I expect nothing from people. Like I expect people, even though it's so easy to do, that people's egos are so fucked that they just won't do it. And, so that's how I get by, and be grateful for what it is, like for the people who can, so, anyways, so that was my day. All right, let's get back to it here. Okay, so I'm going to leave the rest of this for tomorrow. Today's still June 8th. I got one more thing to show you here, though. A prime minister in Israel must have one ability, and if crap. It says here, if he doesn't have it, he cannot be here. So what is that one ability? He needs to be able to say one word to the president. Which word is that? Of the United States, and the word is no. How the fuck are you saying no to the president of the United States? Think about this relationship, right? Now, Israel is more dependent on the United States than any other country. Like without the United States, Israel would cease to exist economically and militarily. It's being propped up by America for a number of years. Pretty much since the beginning. And does nothing really for America other than strategic position in the Middle East, which we have with all these other countries. We have bases in all these other countries. We know this because Iran is targeting these bases in, like 6 other countries around the Middle East. And these countries have oil. They have money to offer. They can pay for having an American military in their country, defending their country, whatever it is, being an ally. They have something to offer. They have, money and oil. And they're bigger countries, right? And so how the fuck are you saying no to the president? Well, there's only one explanation. Here's the post here. There's only one explanation. That explanation is that you've infiltrated the country and are puppeting the leadership in some way. Here it is. Israel's bitch. These are the things underneath here. That's the only one I've seen so far. Zionists were in our government for at least 60 years. We will fight Iran to the last American. America's a golden calf, and we will suck it dry, chop it up, and sell it off piece by piece until there's nothing left. I'm not sure if he actually said that, but maybe he did. We negotiated a ceasefire. Shut up, your goy ass up. Shut your goy ass up before we release the Epstein files. Yeah, take that, goy. And so there's only one way that they could be, in a relationship like this, is that they have purchased influence or they have some kind of leverage, because they don't have leverage in terms of, America has all the leverage. America should tell Israel what the fuck to do constantly. Trump should say, stop fucking bombing Lebanon, which is now Israel saying they're gonna strike back Iran. If Iran strikes them again, after they've decimated, these residential homes in Lebanon, which was done purposely to interrupt the whole thing here. Sure, Jan. Anyway, so I'll cover the rest of that tomorrow. I'll just add this one thing, and then we'll wrap this video up tomorrow and get it up on Wednesday. But this is how fucked we are. Okay, so just add the part about Stephen A. Smith and Trump going at it at the beginning of this video. Today's Tuesday, the 9th of June. There's another thing from Tucker Carlson where he's still pretending that fucking the Trump assassination attempts are real, and the title of the video is "Why is Trump closing down the investigations of his own, this thing?" Instead of so I'm going to lay into that. I want to go into that more in depth tomorrow. But this popped up in my feed on Twitter, and or somewhere, something that made me think this was worth shitting on, right?
He just found the one who was really susceptible to that kind of talk. That's my own belief.
I thought that, but I pushed him hard on this, and
Okay, so what she was saying is Netanyahu was trying to butter up all the other presidents, and none of them bought it until Trump. But then he says this.
Said, look, Netanyahu hates you. You know that. They don't like each other at all. And he has contempt for you. He's shown that. He does not have your best interest at heart. The people pushing you toward this would include Rupert Murdoch, who despises you. Trump knows that, of course. Mark Thiessen has always hated you. Ben Shapiro, they hate you. Mark Levin hates you, has always hated you.
Yes.
The people pushing you to, I said this right to his face, the people pushing you to do this want to destroy you, and they're doing it on behalf of Israel, whose goals include getting the United States out of the Middle East. They don't want the U.S. in the Gulf because it strengthens the Gulf
They don't like our
state.
friendships there.
They don't like our friendships there at all because Qatar and UAE and Saudi, but also Bahrain, Oman, and Kuwait, but mainly those three countries are a massive rival to regional hegemony. You can't run the Middle East with strong Gulf states. And so they want the U.S. out. Israel wants the U.S. out of the Middle East, and they want to degrade those Gulf states. And I said that right to his face. And he said, yeah, I know. So that happened. Now, maybe he was lying to me. I don't know why he would.
Okay, so let's say this conversation actually happened. Let's say he said this to Trump, and Trump agreed with it. Like, who knows what Trump does or what he's listened to or not. But, everyone knows if you praise Trump, and maybe it's a public praise that he likes, or whatever, kiss his ass that he, that he likes that. I mean, that's whatever. But if he knows that these people hate him, and he knows that he's going to get fucked over by them, he knows their goal is to, to kneecap America, and to take as much of that of America as possible and throw America away like a fucking used rubber, right? And the goy, fuck the goy, right? Fuck these goys, fucking goy, you fucking goy, get out of here, fucking goy. Yeah, thanks a lot, you goy, and now fuck you. Now go fuck off. Thanks for being Shabbat goy. And so so if he's aware of that, even as a possibility, who knows what Trump is able to hold on to. But then why is he doing this, right? Like, why is he doing it? Like, then, then it becomes, why would he be? And remember, Mark Levin was holding his shoulder. You could brought him up and say he's the first Jewish American president. Mark Levin was holding him in a way like he owned him and shit. Mark Levin's just some piece of shit on Fox News that nobody likes. It has, no audience. I don't know what his position is, and in terms of power and all these things. But why would Trump throw away his legacy, which is, if he believes what Tucker Carlson just told him, knows his legacy's fucked. And Trump's biggest thing is his buildings and his fucking, all the things that, he's trying to sell to the American people. And he has no legacy. Like, he's like fucked. Like, everyone's going to hate Trump. Like, Trump is going to be, like a Hitler-like figure. Like just an embarrassment to America. That he's going to be the arbiter of American collapse. I mean, they're going to drop all that shit on him. That seems to be the one thing he cares about, is being, appreciated and loved in, some way where he's like, oh, you were the greatest president ever. Like, he wants, especially as you get older, like, wanting statues and shit is a weird thing. It's a very, like, immature stuff, whatever. But all this stuff that he's doing, everyone knows what's going to happen. We're collapsing. Almost everybody can sense it, right? That the things, there's at least a chance that it's going to get worse and not better, and it's just going to go downhill from here on out, whether it's quickly or whatever. And all these things, right?
Did not seem at all enthusiastic about this at all. He seemed like he dreaded it. And I think he retreated into his happy place, as all of us do. Like, maybe it'll be fine. We'll roll the dice. We'll kill the Ayatollah. The whole thing will collapse. It'll just be like the Maduro operation. I think he allowed himself to think that, but he's not stupid. He's very smart in his weird way. It's weird, right? He's not conventionally brilliant, but in his specific way, well, you know him. He has a brilliance to him.
He's gifted.
Obviously, he's gifted for sure. And
he's not gifted. Like, so, he's good at grifting. He's good. Like, his one thing, his gift, is to be able to convince people that there's a mountain of evidence that he's lying to you and he's grifting, that he's not grifting and he's on your side and he cares about you. Even though and he'll say it, it'll come out and they'll still believe in him. That was his one thing. And then whatever the powers that be in God want in terms of the collapse of America, like, which is, you can't go against God's will. And the people who run the world are also, they're doing God's will by bringing down the system that they created, right? A demonic system, like, self-sabotage and all. When people embrace their egos and become demons, they self-sabotage. Like, you can't fucking win. Like, when you go against God's will, you are already, whatever things that are inside of you, you're going to make mistakes, and there's things are going to happen where you're going to just kneecap yourself, right? Like, you're going to do it constantly. You see it. You can see it over and over again. People who are going against their soul's path, you've cut yourself off from God, and immediately you start to self-sabotage. You'll see it with any person. Like, they can't. You can't. It's not something you can fight against. And and they get paranoid, and they'll always make the wrong decision. And they'll follow a script, and it's like their worst nightmare always comes true. Like, it's just the Mahabharata was a great example. There's a blind king who's weak, and like, his name is Dhritarashtra, and I didn't pronounce that nearly correct. There's two kings, and his sons are the worst, and he keeps on, like, he's too weak to stand up to his sons, and he's got like 100 of them. It's a weird thing. I don't even want to explain it. Like, they were born out of like an egg, like 100 kids or some shit. It was crazy. And he's, and he's lamenting, like, if you watch I'm not recommending it. It's a hard watch, but they had this, the special effects are so goofy, the arrows and the stuff like this. But the guy's just weeping the whole fucking, it was a TV series in India, like a fucking, old school, not, so it's not even like pre-Bollywood TV series, and it's like, probably from the 80s or something, and really low budget, or at least for American standards. But the guy is constantly weeping. He's lamenting, he's constantly fucking weeping. But he can't stand up to his shit kids, which he knows, like, it's like it's like a prophecy, a doomed destiny. And, you know, like you see that with Trump, like he's just walking into his worst fucking nightmare.
He knew exactly how bad this could be. And I think within like 24 hours, he knew it was bad. And that's why he sent, I believe, he sent Rubio out there to blame Israel for it. To say, well, we had to do it because they were moving first. And like, then they were going to be exposed and our assets in the region would be exposed. Like, I think that was on purpose. I can't prove it, but I believe it.
Well, like he gives Trump way too much credit. Like Trump is, you know, lost his own bullshit, right? Like, you know, if Trump realized how fucked he was, like if you were fucked as much as Trump was, like if, you know, your worst nightmare was going to come true, like everything that you wanted, like, you know, and you thought you were in a position of power, like almost like, you know, close to absolute power, except you're owned by a foreign country, but you're just doing shit, like you're doing your own shit, and you're banking everything, and your legacy is important, and you're like doing something, and you fucking realize how fucked you are, like you're so fucked, and there's no way out of it. When you realize that, like you can't even get out of fucking bed, kind of thing, like you just like you can't, like, oh my god, I'm so fucked, right? And that's what Trump is. Like he is so fucked. Like he has no, you know, I mean, in terms of Trump is going down in history as being like a moronic fucking Hitler. Like he's just going to be the worst. And like, you know, and it means so much to him. And like, you know, he's just going to, I mean, the way he was after he lost the 2020 election, and like he was in total denial and couldn't fucking deal with it, and everyone who talked about it, you know, whereas you obsessive, where where you have a friend or a relative who loses their shit in a divorce, and they're so bitter, and they're so fucking feel like victim that all they ever talk about is how bad they got screwed, and they're just venom. There's venom in there, so you can't even be around them because when they're talking to you, you're like, holy shit, this fucking guy, man, right? He said, and Trump's totally like that, like just, you know. I mean, when this all goes down, where they're just sitting there going, it's such a shame. I can't believe this, you know, like when the reality sets in. And right now he's in denial, like going out there, just fuck you, I'm going to go to the Knicks game. Fuck everyone, fuck New York, fuck the fans, fuck the Knicks. I'm going, I don't care if they boo. And you know, that thing that he's doing with the WWE, it's so fucking gaudy. There's lights. I mean, it's just bad. It's just fucking poor taste and 100% not presidential. It's the kind of thing in the first term I loved. And I still like it a little bit because it's just, you know. But I mean, things are so much worse now. Anyways, all right, so there's that. Okay, so I have a cause, a health update. I figured out, like, I kind of already knew this already, but now I'm sure of it. So for my whole thing of why my heart started to race, and it was it's a misuse of machine and technology, which I'll talk about here. I think I mentioned it before. So you have this thing called the hiatal hernia. You have the diaphragm. You know, there's a set of muscles here that opens and closes and keeps the stomach acid in, and it opens up to allow food in and closes up to keep the stomach acid from going upwards. And sometimes part of your stomach can get caught on the wrong side of the diaphragm. And so, you know, there's like a sphincter there, set of muscles or whatever it is. There's the diaphragm, hiatal hernia, the esophagus, and the stomach. And so you can get it surgically repaired, but the chiropractors, they'll pull it down. And I've had it done before. It's unpleasant, but it feels better afterwards. So I went back to this chiropractor that had helped me. It's a holistic, you know, it's more than just the chiropractic. The chiropractor part is like the least important part. And, you know, I went back to him in January, and, you know, as my heart I had a regular heartbeat and some other things. And I thought part of the regular heartbeat had to do with my, you know, there's pressure put on the cavity where the heart is from like swollen, you know, bloating and things, my stomach. And I thought the hiatal hernia was part of that. So I asked the guy if he could deal with the hiatal hernia, and he, you know, they reach under your rib cage, and they you know, and he pulled it down, my stomach. And then we went over to this machine that's called a Pro Adjuster 2. And it has a very, whatever it is, like it's got like a little, this thing has, it has something on it like a hammer. And it puts out like percussion waves. And he started to use the thing right below my rib cage on my diaphragm, and it felt weird. I felt uncomfortable about it. I felt it was like too close to my heart or whatever. And I asked him what he's doing. He's saying, well, I'm tightening up those muscles on your diaphragm using the adjuster, which would, make it tighten up the... well, let me also say this. This chiropractor uses these a thing called an activator, and they don't actually do adjustments. They have a machine that can do the Atlas, which works fairly well. I think that works well. My wife and I were in a car accident about 2 years ago, and I think both of our Atlases were out. Your Atlas is where your head and your neck meet, and so it's hard to adjust that. But they don't use any force, and the idea is when you use force, there's a counter force. Your muscles will tighten up, and so they don't do the classic sort of cracking adjustment, but they try to do more subtle. But this thing is not subtle, right? You can see this was the attachment was on one of these, sort of hammerheads thing, and he put it on, and it, went into my gut and, into my heart area, and so I didn't think anything of it, but I was like, it tightened those muscles, like I felt tightness in the diaphragm, and, I did the other things. There was an acupuncturist. My wife and I went out to dinner, and I felt, fine. My gut was a little tight, the muscles were tight, but whatever. Nothing that was that big a deal. And then I went to bed, and I woke up the next morning, and my heart started to race, and it went up to 250 beats a minute. I didn't have a, put my, we had a finger stick thing, but we didn't use it till the second time. But the second time it went up to 250 beats, and it was the exact same feeling that I had with the first time. And it went for 45 minutes. My heart was pounding and racing. It settled down, and we went back to the chiropractor, and they ordered some tests and these other things. And, after that, I thought about what this guy did with this Pro Adjuster thing. And I looked it up, and it said it had percussion waves, and the percussion waves can mimic the heart rate, right? But I didn't find anything else about it. And then the chiropractor said, he heard about my heart thing, and he was, praying about it or thinking about it. There's the main doctor, and there's a guy who works under him who's a chiropractor. And I was pretty sure he, this thing played at least a role in it. And, I had 3 severe episodes, and then I had about 6 weeks where nothing happened, and then I had some more minor episodes recently where my heart, raced, but not so fast. It didn't get up to the whatever it was. I've been kind of figuring it out. But then the chiropractor wondered why I didn't want to use any of their electronic equipment, because I don't really enjoy that stuff anyway, and I have concerns about it. And after what this thing happened with my heart, and they have like a caseworker there that you go to, and they sort of try to manage and communicate. And they had a new one, and she wanted to meet with me today. I went in there today, and I'm like, I want to make sure, because I'm just going to tell her, like, this guy fucked me up, and I don't want it to get awkward. I don't want to get, we've already paid money, and the place is helping me in various ways, but this thing they did was a major fuck up, right? Which I'll talk about more when I switch over to voiceover. And so I looked up this thing here, the Pro Adjuster, and I wrote Pro Adjuster, Pro 2 Adjuster, Chiropractic, do not use over the heart. Never use the Pro Adjuster or any instrument-assisted chiropractic tool directly over the heart or anterior chest wall. While these devices use computerized gentle percussion technology to analyze and adjust spinal joints, applying mechanical forces directly over the chest cavity poses severe health risks. Risk of cardiac arrhythmia. Delivering localized high-velocity mechanical impacts or rhythmic vibrations over the precordium, the chest area over the heart, can disrupt the electrical rhythm of the heart, potentially triggering dangerous arrhythmias, which is what we had, right? And so, I woke up the next morning after this guy had used this thing inappropriately and, in an area he shouldn't, and fucking suffering. So let me switch over to voiceover here. Talking about what I was talking about earlier about gratitude, right? And because this guy made a mistake and this thing happened, I really took the part stuff more seriously. I knew there was I had the irregular heartbeat since COVID. I've had health issues since COVID. I've lost 25 pounds. I'm invested in, I'm really motivated to do things to help, deal with whatever heart issues I might have down the road or whatever it might be or whatever I have now. And I wouldn't be as motivated had I not had that issue. Like immediately, I'm like, I got to lose weight now. Like today, like I got to start, and then I'm going to have to change. I've been changing things to deal with this issue. And so I feel like it's, in many ways good that it happened, like a silver lining. But, then there's whatever issues that I might have that might be permanent. Like hopefully this thing just, gets better and better and then disappears altogether. And, if there's any the kind of situation like this in the future, I'll be able to deal with it, or somebody else has it. I'll have some knowledge, So there's always some advantages to what happens, right? Like there's always ways to look at something with gratitude. I mean, even if there isn't a silver lining, I said earlier that everything comes from God and there's a reason for it. And in my meditations have gotten better, and I've really invested. I mean, there's a lot of things that I'm doing differently and better, and that's all great. But then there's what the fuck was this guy doing? Because it's clearly something he shouldn't be doing. I mean, it's not something that the person should be doing. It's a misuse of a machine, and it's, do no harm kind of thing. And I've had numerous issues with doctors, and I'm not going to repeat them here. My mom's adenoid operation, there's various other things. The dentist filling my mouth full of metal, causing me problems that I had to deal with later on, and maybe still dealing with, right? Mercury poisoning from the fillings and all these things where doctors did do harm. There's a lot of harm, and this guy is an allopathic. He's supposed to be alternative, and, and if this thing is, a condition I have to deal with the rest of my life, it's another way, some sort of, I have gotten some things out of this practice, and the doctor who's in charge is a good doctor, but this guy, all of that. The other issue is now it's awkward. And, there's two things here, because I'm like more hesitant to go there to the place, and, and I'm going to have to say something now, which I didn't want to initially, because like I didn't, why should I suffer whatever, and I don't want them to make a big deal about it, or maybe the guy will deny it or whatever kind of thing it is, it becomes a whole thing, right? It becomes a whole problematic thing. They have, they still have money. You sign up for like a 6-month program, and I wasn't utilizing some of their machines. I never liked their machines anyway, and then after this guy and his bullshit, I really didn't want to do that. And then he was like, oh, you're not utilizing all these things, and, he was the one sort of pressuring it. And you talked to the doctor and the main doctor and the former caseworker, and she they understood like I had sensitivities to Wi-Fi and electricity, and I didn't want to fuck with that. After my heart thing, my heart went nuts, with just the irregular heartbeat and gone fucking full max. That's all I cared about dealing with. Like that's all. I'm not interested in any of these other things right now. Like I got some other issues. They have a body re-education where they, help correct your posture and help, the things that are bothering you, that are making you compensate, with your legs or any number of things. And that works pretty good. And they give like cool stretches and other things, but like I just can't. And it's like every time I go there, they give me 3 or 4 new stretches. And some of them I like, but I just can't do all that shit, right? So there's all this stuff. And so I go in there, and they had this thing called an EDS where they have this, they hook you hold like a metal bar in your one hand, and they touch your fingernail, like the cuticle with some kind of electric device. And it tells you, and they put supplements on this tray that's connected to these things. And it tells you whether you should take the supplements or not. And I felt like it's pretty accurate. Like I feel pretty good about this thing. But the woman was in there. Like there was another younger girl that was like the one who did the EDS with me before. And she seemed to have an attitude. And she ended up leaving. Like I could tell she didn't really like it there. My wife had this woman who's much more into it. But she, so she said, "How you doing?" And I said, I'm doing better, and I got these new things. I got this Valsalva technique. And she goes, "Oh yeah, that's great." And I'm like, "You knew about it? Like, why didn't you guys, when I came in here with a fucking, a regular heartbeat?" Of course, I didn't talk to her. I don't know who else knew about it, but like, there seems to be a lack of communication there, right? Because like I could have been using this technique the whole time. So, that's not great. And when you lose like faith in the doctor, it sucks. Because faith and hope are part of it. Like a positive attitude, creating, they're healing factors. They're healing factors in psychology. They're healing factors in, physical healing, and having faith in the doctor is part of it. And so, we went through this thing, and I'm like, I felt okay with it. And then I went in to see the acupuncturist, who's been great. She's a Asian woman. I think she's Chinese, and it's Chinese medicine, and she's great. Like she's just really sweet, and nice, and really good. I'm best acupuncturist I've ever, ever seen. And I've seen a number of them. I was like a guinea pig patient, where they would do diagnostics on you. There's a person who was in charge of that in New Mexico. There's 3 schools of Chinese medicine in Santa Fe, and like it was a whole thing. So I'm pretty familiar with a lot of it, and I was working. I developed my own EFT technique, and I learned about the various acupuncture energy channels there, like these things that they have. Anyways, so she once in a while when they do acupuncture, they'll light you up a little bit. They'll put the pin in, and the needle in, and it'll make a muscle trigger, like a response, like a reflex response that hit a nerve or something. Once in a while they get you, and she got me like a couple of times, and I felt like there was a needle sticking in my elbow, and there was no needle near it. Like, like I was like, that's weird. And then whenever I moved my toe, she had there's a liver 3-point right between your big toe and the next toe next to it, down a little bit. And it's a very sensitive point for me because I'm a liver 3 person. I'm a liver person. Like you have these different types, and I'm a liver type. And so she put the needle in there, and whenever I moved my foot, it hurt. Like it was just, it's uncomfortable, but it was like, also I was itching in places. Like it was just not a good, when she put the needles in, I always feel relaxed. Like after about the 3rd or 4th needle, I immediately feel 100% relaxed. And I just, then she turns the lights down, and she leaves you in there for like 20 minutes to half an hour. And I almost always take a nap. My wife, it's just very relaxing. But sometimes I'll wake up and I'll be ready to go. And there's no way, you're just sitting there and you can't really move because you got these fucking needles sticking out of you. And, I was itchy, and I had a few of the needles were just, they were like, usually there's no pain at all, but there was some, it wasn't a great one, right? And I'm already kind of stressing because I'm supposed to meet with this caseworker, and I don't really want to do the chiropractor. I don't want to see that guy. And, I don't want to, I'm just kind of low energy, so and I'm just waiting, and it takes probably 15 minutes longer than normal. And she comes in, and I'm like, now I'm wide awake and get these fucking things out of me. And then she starts looking for a missing needle, which is never good. Like, sometimes they'll drop needles, and, sometimes you'll leave and there'll be a needle still in you. Like, it's bad. Like, those are the things that, and when you look at the needle and you see how deep it is, it can freak you out, right? So it's that, but we couldn't find the needle, and I got out of there. And usually I feel great and relaxed, but I'm like, I'm not going to deal with these other guys. It's already a bad sign. And so I go to meet with this woman, and she's the daughter or the daughter-in-law of the main doctor who runs the thing. And, I like this guy. He's I mean, he's definitely a healer in different ways. But he's older now and kind of distracted, and there seems to be staffing issues, and somebody's gone on vacation who's like the receptionist. So I mean, the whole place is kind of like crashing out, and there's not that many people in there. I'm like, holy shit, I gotta get out of here. And so I talked to this woman. She said, I'll email you. Now I got to write up this whole fucking thing. And, like, I don't want to be the one to suffer. Like I said, we have credits there. I have credits there. And there's things I'd still like resolved. I'm supposed to get another battery of tests done to see where my heart is and see if there's still inflammation and, so all these things. And so, fucking, it's a fucking nightmare, right? Because, like, it's their failure. And, there's always a chance that they won't take responsibility or say that, no, that didn't happen. Like, it's just clearly stated, don't use this thing on somebody's fucking diaphragm. And he used it on my diaphragm, and I got a fucking irregular heartbeat. And, I mean, I don't know how they'll deal with it or not. It's just a fucking pain in the ass. And I don't want to go there and be stressed out. Like, it's just it just sucks. Like, it's just a sucky thing. That's kind of how it ended the last time I went there. Like, it just kind of, I got a lot of benefit initially. I mean, not in this case. I did get benefit, but, when I first went there, I was so fucked up after COVID. And I really, the main doctor helped me a lot. That was in 2020. But, it's been 6 years since I've been back. And so, he's gotten older and the whole place it's run differently. And, I mean, it is what it is. Like, it'll just, work itself out. But I'll keep everyone apprised. And I think it's a good thing I now have confirmed that's what happened, right? That this guy put this machine where it shouldn't. And it, it caused like some kind of arrhythmic problems with my heart. And then, I mean, that hopefully is something that isn't permanent, and it seems to be getting better. All right, so that's enough for now. I might come back and do some comments tomorrow. Okay, Tuesday, June 9th, I have a few more things to say about my health thing. And then I have to fucking deal with that today, and I'm stressed. It's a fucking, the whole thing sucks. But I guess it's, I mean, there's a spiritual aspect to it. But anyways, there's 5 or 6 comments I want to get to, too. And I didn't read all the ones from yesterday. I don't know if I'll do those. Whatever. We'll see. So, I had more thoughts about the health thing. There was a time where this chiropractor, the young one, and, the younger one, he's not young, but he's, he, and the guy, there's something like, he's something off about him. I'm not, like, I didn't really like him. I felt uncomfortable around him in the beginning. And, you're in the waiting room and they come and get you and you go through a series of stations, one's body re-education where they try to retrain your body, at certain things. They look at your posture. It's kind of a good thing. It's just too much. Like, it's just, they give you all these exercises you're supposed to take home. And it's like, I can't do all this shit, right? Like, it just, but it's, it's a good thing because they see that there's deterioration and they give you things to fight back against it. It's just that, I'd like to get into like a good, stretching yoga type of situation where my wife and I have talked about that, for older people. And, of course, just exercising and doing the farm work. But anyways, and then there's the chiropractic and there's the acupuncture. And then there's the stuff to do, like they take blood, they draw your blood and things like this. Like I have, I'm due for more testing, to see if the things have gotten better, which I know they have. And then, then they have this other stuff to do with the supplements and the herbs. And so, they have like a kind of a comprehensive thing. And, the chiropractor was pushing me because I didn't want to they have all these stations and they have these machines and one of them uses like, ultrasound or something, one of 2 things. And it's supposed to create healing. I know that there's red light therapy, which the acupuncturist puts on a red light while you're sitting there with the needles in you. And I like the red light therapy. I've done that before. I've had this for a while. My ex got into it when she was trying to cure her thyroid with it. It didn't work. And then, my wife and I know about it. And we have some red light things and we've used them. Sometimes, like, it's just something like I've used and liked, but it didn't stick with it. But anyways, like, there's lots of energetic machines and there's different things in there. And, he brought me into to do the chiropractic, and he sat me like there's these two chairs outside his house, outside his office, and he had another guy that was supposed to go before me, and the guy was already in there doing the body re-education, so he sat me in the the chairs. There's a waiting room. They've made the acupuncturist area nice. They have these sort of Chinese lamps with the, I don't know if they're Chinese or just some sort of Asian, with the big lamps with the paper covering. It's like, they have different atmosphere, and there's cushions, and you can sit outside the acupuncturist, and there's about 6 or 7 rooms that they can have different, people go in, and you get like this private room in there, and then they, do the acupuncture, and you just sit there. And then there's the chairs outside the chiropractor. So there's like a waiting room within the sort of office, the thing. And so he takes this other guy, and he puts him in this adjuster, this, Pro Adjuster or whatever it's called, and he's using it right in front of me. And like, if there's anything that made me think that they intentionally, like, this guy has some kind of beef with me and is intentionally doing it, which there's no evidence that that's the case. But I'm sitting there, and it's bugging the shit out of me. He's using this thing in front of the guy, like not mentally, but physically. I'm like, I have to get up and move. I just walk to the bathroom because I don't want to be in that room with this machine, because it's a percussion machine. And last night I realized, there's times my wife and I have traveled, and we have some songs, in a playlist that we listen to, as well as like we'll listen to, various interviews or things like this. And, then sometimes when I drive by myself, I'll listen to music. And I've had trouble, especially right after I had the big event where my heart went up to 250, and my heart was very sensitive. And we were watching the Trader show, and that sort of like it was triggering. I couldn't watch it because they had this, this bullshit sort of suspenseful music. And I realized it's because of the percussion. This thing puts out percussion, which is that it's very similar to your heartbeat, something like the whatever, and it's disruptive, and my mind got fucked up because of this machine, and like, so I realized it's a big fucking deal, and then, I went to bed knowing that I had to deal with this fucking thing, and like it's their fault, they fucked me up, and like, I could sue them, of course I won't, because I don't believe in that kind of shit, and I know that there's like I believe in that this is coming from God, that part of it. But then there's the human part you have to deal with, because like I'm getting things out of this, this practice, but I don't feel comfortable in there. And like now it's, it's no good when you go in and get stressed out. And I don't have any faith or trust in that chiropractor because, whatever. He's misusing his machines, and the guy's just like, he's one of those guys, like, there's chiropractors that are a little bit handsy. It's like I don't know. Like, so I'm not now. So all this stuff, like now I have to fucking deal with all this stuff, right? So it's like, why am I dealing with it when you guys fucked up, right? Like, how are you going to make this thing fucking better? And so there's like whatever. So that's going to happen. So let me get into the comments here. I'm being way cooler about it than I should be. Like, this, when somebody does something that fucks you, like, what if it's permanent? What if I have this issue, on and off for the rest of my life because some guy did some bullshit thing, right? And again, because of the gratitude thing and the Sajmark thing and the fact that, everything comes from God, I'm dealing this way better than a normal person, average person would deal with it, right? And so, unless somebody just, couldn't stand up for themselves, and I have no problem, like, saying shit to people when, especially like in a situation like this. But, I don't want things to be uncomfortable where I can't take advantage of the benefits at this place, right? There's other things that I like. And certainly the supplements have been helping me. And, at some point I could just, it'll be over. Plus there's, I have credits there, and they fucking either better refund me the credits or whatever. Okay, so let me read these comments and wrap this thing up. Here's the first one from last night. Eric is a dude. I hope you realize this, Paul. I don't realize that. It says Eric is a dude. Erica Kirk is a dude. I don't realize it. It's possible, but I don't think so. Like, and I said it and I joked about it in some videos, but like, none of these things are 100%. Erica Kirk could be a dude, but I think the likelihood of that is somewhat small. But whatever it is. And then and I talked about in my video, look, Grandma is twerking and Grandpa is groping. Charlie Shekels revisited, and somebody wrote, somebody was upset because was talking about Alex Jones, and my body's full of cholesterol. This is the meme I have, and somebody wrote, cholesterol's good for you, so ha ha, like, and somebody wrote, Paul, you anti-cholesterol MNFer, right? Like this whole thing, but actually it was pro-cholesterol MNFer, what the person was accusing me of. Paul, he says, when you hitting 2,000K, Paul, you shadow banned? And it should say, bro. You shadow banned, bro? Yeah, that would be, the whole thing. You mad, bro? I got up to 100,000 in 2017. My wife and I got married in 2018. We, got together in 2017. And she came out to where we lived in Utah. And, we came back and we were in Vegas and then we went out to Utah. A lot of you guys see those pictures I often use. Some of those things are from Utah in the Las Vegas area. Beautiful places out there. Bryce Canyon, probably my favorite, but there's a place called Snow Canyon. We lived near, I can't remember the name of it. Whatever it is. There's like a city there, small city in Utah, and they have a state park called Snow Canyon. It was like, 40 minutes or 35 minutes from my house. And anyways, so it was a beautiful place. And my wife came out to, visit us, a few times before we ended up moving to where she was. And she wanted us to celebrate my getting 100,000, whatever. So we went to Vegas. And we didn't gamble. Like I'd been, I'd lived there for about a year. We got back from India. I liked the place, liked the area. Great places, really nice parks there too. Also, these southwestern parks. And it gets so hot in the summer you can't go out. But we went to Vegas and, we celebrated. We went to the aquarium there and we saw the Bellagio, like, water stuff. And then we ate this restaurant and the restaurant had sous vide cooking, where you cook stuff, particularly meats, in like a bag of water, and you cook it at a low temperature. And I don't recommend things, but I use sous vide cooking like all the time. It's unbelievably tender and just amazing. It's a great way. It's a French word, SOUSVIDE. And so my wife was saying to me, she remembers that I was getting like 100 or more subscribers a day. And so from that time, 2017, when we celebrated the 100,000 thing, to where we were married in 2018, in less than a year, I went from 100,000 to 200,000 subscribers. And there are a lot of bullshit subscribers. I mean, I got a lot of people that, videos I don't make anymore, people that don't understand what the fuck I'm doing now. Probably, I have, if I had to start my channel over, in fact, that happened. The Gratefullness, I have a secondary channel called Apocalypse Now, where I started posting more there than here, because they were more lenient on my ads there. They liked that channel better for a while, and I was getting away with stuff during the COVID that I couldn't get away with here. Not that I'm getting away with anything. Fuck that. They weren't penalizing me with their bullshit stuff as much there as here. But that switched. Then they didn't like that channel. So I don't know what happened. You get put in these fucking categories by these bots. But anyways, I think 25,000 subscribers there. It got up to 25. I don't know what it is now. So I probably have like legitimately 20,000, 25,000 people who still like my channel, like some part of it, and come here, whatever. Regularly 4,000 to 5,000 views, 3,000 to 5,000 views on my videos daily. And, 200 subscribers. So that's about the people. It's a small audience, and then there's 2,000 over at Gratefullness Meditation. That whole thing. So you know, it's okay. I mean, it's whatever. And it is shadow banned, of course, but like, I don't know what it would be without shadow banned. Like, I think there's probably a million people in U.S., you know, globally that would dig my channel. You know, out of 8 billion people, I don't know, like, you know, maybe 10 million. Like, maybe there's 10 or 20 million people who they would dig this, you know. And I mean, some people just don't like my personality, or it's just too real rough for them, or they don't like this, you know, whatever it might be. But, you know, the potential audience. And then there's, you know, out of those people, there's probably, I could have 150 to 100,000 views per video, you know, like regularly, daily, whatever. Like, that would be maxed out if YouTube wasn't fucking me over. But I don't know. Like, who the fuck knows, right? I'm still a fringe person. I've always been fringe. Like, I'm a fringe person in a fringe group. Like, I'm a fringe person. Just got a phone call from my wife, and then I ate breakfast and went for a walk. I saw 2 bunnies. We see bunnies pretty much every day, but one was really tiny and cute and fucking disappeared in the whole thing. We had a snapping turtle lay eggs. I mean, I got all these video clips I got to put up at some point. Anyways, so I was eating breakfast, and I looked at Morning Joe to see if there's any big breaking story. You know, they suck over there, but, you know, I taped that show, and you know, the various sports shows, and I was watching the sports over the, you know, stuff to do with the basketball game. And there seemed to be a tapping on the door. I left the door open, and it sounded like someone's tapping on it. And my dogs start barking. I'm like, who the fuck is here? It's like 9 o'clock or whatever. And I go over there, and there's a chicken. And there's something on the door that looks like food. The chicken's like tapping away at the glass. Anyways. So, you know, what I was saying is I'm a fringe person in fringe groups. Like, in terms of the truth community, I'm fringe. Like, you know, and you guys all can figure out why. And then in terms of the Sajmark meditation I do, I'm certainly fringe, right? And for, you know, some of that is cross fringe. You know, I'm fringe of the truth community because I'm not a Christian or not a, you know, whatever. And I do this meditation, and in the meditation, it's because I'm a truther. And so, like, you know, I'm a fringe person on both, you know, in 2 fringe groups. And, you know, I don't pander to dumb fucks. I mean, I did in the beginning, and my videos, some of that was just because I was, you know, a little bit of a dumb fuck myself. You know, I mean, in terms of my understanding of the truth community. What's happening here? Is it still taping? Yeah. Sometimes the thing gets ahead of itself when I'm doing the voiceover. So let me get to the next comment here. Here it is. So it says, yes, if you're not moving forward, however slowly, doesn't matter. You are stagnating and going backwards. And I don't know if somebody was quoting me, or, you know, the Sajmark teachings say on the spiritual plane, there is no stagnant position. You're either going forwards or backwards. You can't just hang out. And one of the reasons is there are these spiritual points and conditions where you can get to a certain level on your spiritual journey, and it's like pure bliss. There's multiple points that when you get there, and, you know, or you have access to it, you're just like feeling amazing. Pure happiness, you know, and it's not just one, but many points like this. And of course you want to stay there, right? Why would you want to leave that? And so, you know, it's like when you go on vacation and you get into a certain state. I mean, I lived in the Virgin Islands for a while. That was pretty much hell, though. Like, it was right after a hurricane. It's just evil corruption and just, you know, I mean, when you talk about like Banana Republic shit, it's like bad. I'm not going to get in. I've told that story before. But, you know, that's back when I was drinking alcohol and stuff, and I could drink and like have no hangover the next day, and just, you know, there was a time where I was going to this private beach. It was just it was public, but nobody knew about it. I found out later it was a nude beach, but I never went there when people were there. So, and I was in this crystal blue water, and pelicans were diving 5 feet away from me. Like, I'm just swimming, and these pelicans are landing, grabbing fish. You know, I was just amazing. Like, so big, powerful birds, and the water's like, you know, I'm just there by myself, right? Like, you know, so, but, you know, like, and when I lived in Florida, it was so similar, same day, every day, and after a while, it starts making you crazy. You know, so, like, you need adversity, you need change in seasons, whatever. And so, you know, so there's that. But in the spiritual field, you just have to keep on moving. And then somebody wrote, Dr. Shiva exists and he's building a bottom-up movement. I hear you keep saying there's no solution for the everyday person, etc. I never said there's no solution for the everyday person. I said there's no solution. Well, I said that people don't have leverage, so you can't change the government. But even if you could, the debt-based economy and the moral decline and decay and going away from God cannot be reversed. The system can't be made. I mean, I don't know how dumb you got to be. Like, you might not agree with me, but you should be able to understand what I'm saying. Like, there's a situation where it's so corrupt. You know, there's the idea of a car being totaled. Like, it's what it costs to fix the car exceeds the value of the car, and our system is like that. But our system is even worse. It's that's if your car was possessed by a fucking demon, and it sucked, right, and it was running inefficiently. To fix the car, you could buy a new car. You could buy 7 cars that were better and had more value than that car, or whatever. I mean, you could buy multiple cars that were better cars for what it would cost to fix the car. And then you have to get it exercised out, and then still it's, fucking, piece of shit old car. And so, I don't know how other way to put it. Like, there's no fixing the system. And everybody should fucking understand it, right? Like, it's not, it's not like there's some solution out there, because there is no solution. And God doesn't want it. Like, why would God want to fix the system? Especially the religious part. The religion sucks so bad, and it's acting as all of it. Like, it's not that just America, it's globally. It's a fucking obvious problem. We're going in the wrong fucking direction. And what it would cost and the other thing is, people are addicted to the internet. Like, I'm talking about how the internet clearly affects us negatively. There's some kind of, and they've done testing on it. Of course they've done testing. They know what it does. And, 4G was, microwaves. 5G is millimeter waves. I don't even know what 6G is, but they get worse each time. And microwaves are bad for you, right? You understand that. And you have them on your smart meter at home. You have them on 5G, and you're getting bombarded with them. And it's obviously having a negative effect. Small doses of poison, right? And electromagnetic poison in this case. So, but who's going to get rid of the internet? Like, if you convinced everybody, they showed every person that this was fucking killing you and hurting you in so many ways, and hurting your children, and your kids were not going to be able to have kids, and it's going to depopulate the world, and all this stuff. It's it's all the negativity. You think people would give up internet, knowing how bad it is? Let's say it was fucking way worse than I know. The whispers of the brighter world messages that I said, how it disrupts the subtle bodies, but on a physical level. They could show you documented proof that the internet's horrible for you. You think people are going to give that shit up? Like, there's no way, right? This generation, like, they're going to say, all right, let's not use internet. Let's just fucking scrap it. Let's get. You think people would volunteer for that? So, that's what I'm talking about. Like, people are not going to give up their poisons, just the same way that Trump won't give up their MAGA stuff, their belief in MAGA, when it so obviously failed. Democrats aren't going to give up their belief in the shitty democratic system, or in some cases Joe Biden. And they weren't as passionate about Joe Biden. They're not going to give up their political beliefs when they clearly see this isn't working. People are just going to delude themselves and keep on taking the poison, right? Because that's what people do. And that, when there's an easy solution, which is find the divinity within you and change your whole orientation to your life, and your ego is never going to let that happen until it's forced to. And so, the change is coming one way or another. And so they're just going to depopulate all the people that can't do it, and the souls that can't do it or won't do it. And then the souls that can do it will be, everything will line up so that they'll have to do it. Like, there won't be any other choice because of the conditions on the world. So that's, that would be and just a kind of a, being born with a different sort of orientation, like this genetic mutation they talk about in Whispers, where people will be more spiritually and more spiritual oriented. And so, it hasn't happened yet, so I'll believe it when I see it, but I have hope and faith that it can happen. All right, let me wrap this one up here. Only spirituality will save this world. It's Paramano, definitely praying for the apocalypse. And the ascension, everyone have a blessed day and be grateful.